Chapter 76. The fear in the crowd grew stronger and stronger. They were so frightened by the threats from Beauties and the bodyguards that they dared not move. They knew that it was impossible to escape at this moment, and they could only hope that Lin Feng would let them go. However, Lin Feng had no mercy. Just then, a burst of hurried footsteps came from the corridor entrance. Zhang Jiuzheng and the remaining two bodyguards rushed over and saw the scene. Instead of being angry, he was faintly excited. He found a commanding position and shouted loudly. "You all saw it, this guy is simply a beast. Not only did he have the heart to watch everyone starve to death, but now he has killed so many neighbors. Let's quickly find some insulating wood to ram. As long as we open the door, we can get our revenge. Everyone remember, as long as you don't touch the door, a happy life is right in front of you. Everyone must work hard." Under Zhang Jiashan's instigation, everyone's eyes turned red. He hadn't eaten for several days in a row. Even if he wasn't electrocuted by Lin Feng, he would have starved to death. Soon someone found all kinds of wood, table legs, bed boards, everything you could think of. Everyone come together. 1 2 3. Push harder. A group of people took turns to violently bang on the door of Lin Feng's house. Bang bang bang. However, there was no sign that the door had been smashed open, not even a dent, just some slight scratches. Zhang Jiuzheng, who was standing far away, witnessed the chaos in the crowd. He quickly called Beauties to his side and whispered. "It will only be a waste of effort if we continue like this. We have to change our strategy. Send some of your men out and follow me to attack Sun Ziyi's home. That is Lin Feng's weak spot." Beauties nodded in agreement and quickly organized people to attack Sun Ziyi's house. The changes in the crowd naturally attracted Lin Feng's attention. At this moment, Lin Feng suddenly pressed another switch. With a click sound, a large amount of water mist suddenly sprayed out from all around the house. In an instant, the entire corridor was shrouded in white mist. What's going on? My eyes are blind." Shouts of fear rang out one after another, and people lost their way in the sudden water mist and fell into chaos. They waved their weapons, trying to find Lin Feng in the mist, but could only hack and slash in vain. Zhang Jiuzheng also saw the changes here, but he did not choose to return to help. Instead, he remembered what Lin Feng said in the group, anyone who gets close to Sun Ziyi's house will be killed without mercy. He felt a chill in his heart and decided to act cautiously. He stood at a distance and directed the crowd. "You, and you, all of you, come together. As long as you capture Sun Ziyi alive, Lin Feng will surrender." However, compared to the danger at Lin Feng's doorstep, this place is indeed much safer. Therefore, as soon as Zhang Jiuzheng finished speaking, two people rushed out with sticks in their hands. Swoosh swoosh, two sounds of breaking through the air were heard, followed by the screams of the two people who rushed out. When everyone looked in the direction of the sound, they saw an arrow stuck in each of their thighs, and blood had stained their trouser legs red. It goes without saying that this must have been shot by Lin Feng. When everyone saw this, they felt fear in their hearts. They looked at each other and all stopped moving forward. No one wants to be the next target to be shot. In this apocalyptic world, being injured is equivalent to being sentenced to death. This time, Lin Feng completely lost his patience and was too lazy to aim at each target carefully. "Since you want to kill me, don't blame me for being rude." He raised the crossbow in his hand and began to shoot at random. The arrows were like messengers of death, drawing cold tracks in the air. Soon several people were hit by arrows and fell down in pain. At this time, someone woke up as if from a dream and shouted loudly. "Everyone be careful, he has a long-range attack weapon." This shout woke the people around as if from a dream. They screamed in fear and then hurried to disperse. But the space was so small and the light was so dim, hundreds of people were crammed together, one next to the other, making it almost impossible to move. Because of extreme fear and panic, everyone was so anxious that a lot of people tripped and fell. There were bursts of terrified shouts and screams from the crowd, and the scene was in chaos. Lin Feng was like a cold-blooded killer, mercilessly shooting arrows at the crowd attacking Sun Ziyi's house. The whistling sound of the arrows was like the chanting of a soul-demanding Buddhist sutra, echoing in the parking space, which was extremely terrifying. Screams rang out one after another, and the entire parking lot seemed to have turned into a hell on earth. Zhang Jiuzheng stood at the end of the crowd with a kitchen knife in his hand, a sly smile on his face. "Everyone calm down, I don't believe he can kill us all." Although his words were intended to reassure people, his real purpose was to keep these people as cannon fodder. At this moment, the fog outside Lin Feng's house seemed to be blown away by a gust of wind, revealing the truth that had been hidden. Everyone's eyes lit up, and someone immediately noticed the observation hole on the door and exclaimed. "Look, there's a hole in the door. That's where the arrow came from. Let's plug it." Before he finished speaking, someone raised the bedboard in his hand without hesitation and quickly blocked the observation hole on the door. However, this did not reassure everyone, and some people were still unwilling to accept it. They tried to throw various objects into Lin Feng's room, and some even built a human ladder and wanted to climb in through the observation hole to find out what was going on. Lin Feng did not panic. He quickly closed the iron door behind the observation port and locked it tightly. The design of the observation port is very clever. It can only be opened from the inside, and people outside cannot break in no matter what. Seeing that Lin Feng could no longer shoot arrows, the neighbors came back to their senses from their fear and began to examine the tragic scene before them. The ground was in a mess and covered in blood. Many people were injured and in unbearable pain. In the fog, they thought Lin Feng would come out, so they waved their weapons recklessly, but ended up hurting their companions by mistake. For a while, wailing and cursing were heard one after another. Dozens of people fell to the ground, and some even stopped breathing, apparently having died unfortunately. Some people who lost their loved ones were in so much pain that they cried and cursed Lin Feng loudly. Lin Feng, you coward, come out if you dare. Don't think you'll be safe if you hide behind the door. We will find you. So many people died because of you, doesn't your conscience hurt? Lin Feng's life is mine, no one can snatch it from me. However, what the neighbors didn't know was that Lin Feng had already returned to the sofa in the living room leisurely. Chapter 77. He sipped his tea quietly, with a scornful smile on his face. It was like watching a funny clown show, leisurely watching their angry and furious actions. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of BG on the door rang out again, even more deafening than before, as if it was going to shake the whole house down. However, Lin Feng remained unmoved. He gently put down the teacup and waited quietly. Within a minute, everyone felt something was wrong. Their bodies gradually became stiff, and a thin layer of ice formed on each of them. Even the thick clothes were slowly becoming stiff. It was not until then that they suddenly realized that the water mist released by Lin Feng just now had completely soaked their clothes. They were so angry and excited that they didn't notice this at all. I didn't realize this until I was shivering from the cold and my movements became slow. Ah, cut. This is too damn cold. I'm almost frozen. At this time, everyone realized the seriousness of the situation. They knew that if they continued like this, within minutes they would be frozen into statues and at the mercy of others. A strong sense of fear surged in their hearts, making them unable to care about the threats from Beauties and others anymore. So they turned around and ran towards their homes. They just want to return to their warm homes as soon as possible and escape the shackles of cold and fear. However, when they turned around, they found that Beauties and others had disappeared. They felt nervous, not knowing where these people had gone and what kind of trouble they would cause. However, they have no time to care about these things now. They can only take care of their own safety and escape from this horrible place as soon as possible. On the other side, Zhang Jiusheng stood in front of his team, staring at the chaotic scene of the crazy retreat. He looked around and found that everyone's eyes were filled with fear and anxiety, as if they were shrouded by Lin Feng's shadow, and they all showed signs of retreating. Zhang Jiusheng took a deep breath. He knew that if he couldn't keep his footing, then all their previous efforts will be wasted. Everyone listen to me, we can't just be driven by fear. We have already paid a huge price and lost so many people. Their sacrifice cannot be in vain. Look, the door of Sun Ziyi's house is right in front of us, only a dozen meters away from us. As long as we unite as one and work together, we will be able to break down her door, capture Sun Ziyi alive, and force Lin Feng to hand over the food. The originally restless crowd gradually quieted down after hearing Zhang Jiashen's words. Zhang Jiusheng felt relieved when he saw this. He quickly organized the remaining people into two groups, one in front and one in the back. In case Lin Feng suddenly launches an attack and catches them all in one fell swoop. Call out. The sharp sound of the crossbow arrow cutting through the air echoed in the air again, like the prelude to the coming of death. There is no doubt that Lin Feng's target this time is Zhang Jiusheng. The arrow shot out like lightning and hit Zhang Jiashen's thigh accurately. He covered his wound in pain, his eyes blazing with anger as he roared. Damn it, everyone in the first group, come on. Break down Sun Ziyi's door no matter what. His roar echoed in the air, and the 70 or 80 people in the first group seemed to be injected with powerful motivation. They rushed towards Sun Ziyi's home like wild beasts. Their eyes were filled with despair and greed. Having not eaten for several days, they had come to see breaking into Sun Ziyi's house as their last hope of survival. However, just as they rushed towards Sun Ziyi's house, the sound of whoosh was heard again in the air. Everyone subconsciously covered their heads and dodged, fearing that they would be hit by arrows. However, surprisingly, the two arrows did not hit anyone, but fell in the center of the two groups of people. They were surprised to find that there seemed to be something tied to the arrow. Bang, bang. Two slight noises were heard, and then a large amount of smoke quickly spread out. There was an indescribable stench mixed in with the smoke, which was nauseating. Alpaca, who pooped here? Why does it stink so bad? FKU, I haven't eaten in days. If someone poops, I'll be the first to eat it. However, just as they were teasing each other, someone suddenly shouted. No, this is a smoke bomb, the smell is coming from inside. Everyone realized that something was wrong, but at this time, the fog had spread rapidly, enveloping them completely. Fear and a sense of uncertainty spread among the people. They didn't know what means Lin Feng would use to deal with them next. Shrouded in thick fog, they rushed around like headless flies, constantly bumping into each other and falling down. Lin Feng took Orlan's hand and slowly walked out of the house, as if everything was under control. After walking a few steps, Orlan suddenly started barking wildly in the direction of the fog, his voice full of vigilance and hostility. The barking seemed to be sending some kind of signal to everyone, announcing Lin Feng's arrival. That's Lin Feng's dog. He's out. Someone shouted in horror, his voice revealing an undisguised fear. Fear quickly spread among the crowd, and they realized that they were about to face greater danger. They were already eager to escape, and now they quickened their pace, trying to escape from this dangerous place. However, Lin Feng would not let them go easily. He quickly took out several smoke bombs from the space and threw them at the crowd one after another. With a few loud bangs, the smoke quickly spread, and the people who had just run out of the fog were blocked from view again. Then, Lin Feng took out a gasoline bottle, lit it quickly and threw it out. I saw a raging flame suddenly ignited in the crowd, forming a sea of a fire. Wow, it's so warm. The long-lost feeling of warmth made everyone feel comfortable, as if they had found a bit of warmth in this cold night. However, this warmth was fleeting. The flames spread quickly and soon burned them. Ah, help! Shouts of fear continued to be heard from the crowd, accompanied by groans and wails of pain. In panic, many people fell to the ground, and they struggled to stand up. But the flames devoured their bodies mercilessly, leaving them no chance to stand up. The fire was burning fiercely, and bursts of burnt fragrance filled the air. In desperation, some people actually grabbed pieces of meat on the ground and stuffed them into their mouths, as if they wanted to fill their stomachs with this last food. Damn it, I have to eat enough even if I die. They shouted in despair, their voices filled with helplessness and indignation. However, this final struggle was in vain, and the fire mercilessly devoured them one by one. Chapter 78. In the end, only 100 people out of the 160-plus team escaped. Moreover, everyone was injured to varying degrees. Everyone fled to a corner in a panic. At this moment, a sly light flashed in the eyes of several smart people, and they acted quickly. Several bodies that had been burned beyond recognition were dragged out. This is the only gain from this thrilling operation. Everyone sat together around the corpses. The long-lost feeling of fullness made a trace of relief temporarily appear on their faces. However, they knew that this was only a temporary respite. Just then, the sound of hurried footsteps broke the silence. Everyone looked up and saw Beauties running towards them, panting, with a pickaxe in his hand. He looked at everyone with surprise, as if he couldn't understand what was happening before him. You, what's going on with you? Looking at the intact Beauties, Zhang Jiashan's anger instantly burned in his heart. He glared at Beauties and said with gritted teeth. How dare you ask? I want to ask you first, what have you been doing? Beauties raised the pickaxe in his hand and explained. I thought the door of Lin Feng's house was too strong to be broken open. So, I went to find this pickaxe. We can break down the wall. I don't believe that this brick and cement wall can't be broken down. Beauties' words were like a stream of clear spring water, instantly arousing everyone's fighting spirit. The fear of death dissipated in their hearts, replaced by anger and desire for revenge. Damn, this is a good idea. Haha, I can finally avenge those who died. Hurry up, everyone, go find some tools, those who are slightly injured, follow me. Zhang Jiasheng raised his arms and shouted, his voice revealing firmness and determination. Lin Feng, I wonder if you can escape this time. However, Lin Feng in the room was completely unaware of what was happening outside. Because the distance was too far, he couldn't hear what they were saying. He just vaguely heard a burst of cheers and couldn't help frowning. Have these people been burned stupid by me? A disdainful smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. He didn't feel worried at all. Because he knew that the safe house he had spent so much effort and money to build could not be easily broken into by this mob. Doors, walls, windows, even the ground and roof are all made of bulletproof materials. Ordinary explosives can't even blow it up, let alone this group of rabble. Before long, there was a lot of noise and dust. More than 20 strong men armed with pickaxes and sledgehammers gathered outside the house. There was determination and madness in their eyes, as if they had seen the dawn of victory. Bang! A loud bang shook the entire underground parking lot, a big man's muscles tightened. Using all his strength, he smashed the sledgehammer in his hand against the wall. His movements were swift and powerful, as if he wanted to smash the wall to pieces. A crack suddenly appeared in the wall, and white dust fell like snowflakes. When everyone saw this, there was a glimmer of excitement in their eyes, as if they saw a breakthrough right before their eyes. Keep smashing. Try harder. So, everyone waved their tools more vigorously. Each blow was accompanied by a dull thud and flying dust. However, just as the big man was about to swing the hammer again, there was a sharp metal collision sound. Ding dong, the big man screamed and the hammer in his hand fell to the ground with a bang. He took a few steps back and fell heavily to the ground. Everyone rushed forward and saw that his hands were bloody and the wounds were so deep that the bones were visible. Under the attack of low temperature, the blood quickly solidified into shocking bloodstains. What's going on? Everyone was panicked and looked at the solid wall in front of them in disbelief. They couldn't figure out what kind of wall could withstand such a violent attack. Someone walked over carefully and reached out to sweep away the dust on the wall. When he saw clearly what was behind him, his eyes widened and his jaw almost dropped. This wall is also made of steel. Everyone was shocked and gathered around to watch. Sure enough, after peeling off the outer layer of white ash, thick and solid black metal was revealed. FK, this Lin Feng is crazy, the walls are made of steel. His voice was full of helplessness and despair, as if his confidence had been completely shattered by the steel wall. However, there are still people who are unwilling to give up. Damn it, I don't believe I can't break open this turtle shell. Someone said this with gritted teeth, picking up the hammer again to hit the wall somewhere else. Several people worked together, hoping to find a flaw in the wall. However, no matter from which angle they struck, what they finally found was a solid and thick steel wall. Every attempt ended in failure, and every despair made them feel heartbroken. In the living room, Lin Feng curled his lips in disdain. He had expected such an outcome and felt great contempt for these people's stupidity and ignorance. Damn it, if you can think of the problem, how can I not think of it? Go ahead and smash it, you can't break it even if you die of exhaustion. At this moment, Beauties' voice came from behind the crowd. Don't smash it. Lin Feng might have connected the high-voltage electricity to the wall. Let's withdraw and think of other ways. Everyone retreated to the corner again, and someone immediately started complaining. What the hell, this is the first time I've seen someone build a house with steel plates. I knew they were renovating their house, but I didn't expect it to turn out like this. There are probably not many normal people in this world who would build such a house. It was already dawn, and everyone's eyes were bloodshot. Zhang Jiusheng said through gritted teeth. Lin Feng must have known about the disaster a long time ago. He did this to prevent others from entering his home. Without Zhang Jiashen's deliberate reminder, everyone had actually gradually realized this. Lin Feng not only stockpiled abundant supplies in advance, but also carefully decorated the house with steel plates. This move seemed extremely strange. Who could really believe him if he said he knew nothing about the disaster? Biozi looked at everyone's tired faces, sighed, and spoke slowly. Alas, after a whole night of hard work, everyone is exhausted. It seems that we should go back and rest for a while. After we have enough energy, we can think of other ways. And last night, after a fierce fight, more than 100 of the 400 people who came with great momentum died. They were either frozen to death or burned to death, without exception they all fell into Lin Feng's hands. Chapter 79. After everyone left, an enchanting figure quietly appeared at the place where they were just now, like a ghost. She has a graceful figure and long hair, exuding an alluring charm. Li Meiying looked at the hellish scene in front of her and felt a chill in her heart. There were broken limbs and arms all over the ground, the blood dyed the entire ground red, and the smell of blood was sickening. She couldn't help but shudder. Lin Feng's methods were too cruel. How was this different from a butcher? However, in this apocalyptic world, survival is a cruel game. Only if you are ruthless and smart enough can you gain a foothold in this world full of dangers and uncertainties. Li Meiying knew this very well, so she chose to stand on Lin Feng's side. At this moment, she was very glad that she had made the right bet. Lin Feng not only defeated hundreds of neighbors, but also shocked everyone with his thundering methods. His strength and decisiveness made her feel at ease and admired. I looked around and saw that there was no one in the underground parking lot. Li Meiying took a deep breath and adjusted her mood. She walked towards Lin Feng's home with light steps. Ding ding ding, the knock on the door sounded in Lin Feng's ears, and he couldn't help feeling a little surprised. Who would come to see me at this time? Could it be that Zhang Jiusheng and his gang haven't given up yet and have come up with another plan? However, when he turned on the surveillance camera and saw the slender figure outside the door, his doubts instantly disappeared. Although she was wearing a scarf and a hat, covering her entire face tightly, but Lin Feng could confirm at a glance that the person outside the door was Li Meiying. Li Meiying, a unique woman, exudes a unique charm that is unforgettable. At this moment, Li Meiying's arrival was exactly what Lin Feng wanted. The crazy killing made him too angry, and he was worried that he couldn't find an outlet to vent his anger. The appearance of Li Meiying may be a good opportunity for him to relax. Lin Feng opened the door and Li Meiying walked in. She always had a confident smile on her face, as if everything was under her control. Lin Feng discovered that she was different from all the women he had met before. Her temperament and demeanor made him feel somewhat fascinated. Mr. Lin, nice to meet you. Li Meiying smiled and said, you are so amazing, it's beyond my expectation. Lin Feng also responded with a smile. I have something even more powerful, do you want to see it? Of course Li Meiying knew what Lin Feng was referring to. She did not answer, but just smiled gently, as if everything was self-evident. She walked into the house, looked around, and then untied the thick equipment on her body. Lin Feng looked at her and couldn't help feeling a little expectant. However, to Lin Feng's surprise, Li Meiying took off all her clothes without his reminder, leaving only a bikini. She stood there and turned around, showing off her figure, and then said, you see, I don't have any weapons on me. I came to you only to fulfill my promise. Lin Feng looked at Li Meiying and couldn't help feeling a little surprised. This woman is really smart. She knows how to use her charm to conquer men. Lin Feng slightly turned sideways and made an elegant and respectful gesture of invitation. Ms. Li, please come in. Li Meiying walked in front gracefully with a graceful figure, and every step seemed like dancing. Lin Feng followed behind her, his eyes inadvertently sweeping across her back, secretly admiring her in his heart. While Li Meiying was not paying attention, Lin Feng quietly took out a sexy lace pajamas from the space. When Li Meiying sat down on the sofa, Lin Feng gently handed her pajamas. His movements were natural and polite, as if all this was taken for granted. Li Meiying took the pajamas, a hint of curiosity flashed in her eyes. She looked at the pajamas in her hand, then looked up at Lin Feng, as if asking about the origin of the pajamas. However, she did not ask, but just gently put on her pajamas. The pajamas fit her body curves tightly, outlining her perfect figure. Li Meiying smiled charmingly, like a blooming flower, so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off her. Mr. Lin, I didn't expect you to understand women so well. Her voice is gentle and sweet, like a spring breeze, making people feel relaxed and happy. In every gesture, Li Meiying's seductiveness seems to be innate. There is no need to deliberately show it, it is enough to make people feel moved. Lin Feng felt as if his nosebleed was about to burst out. He tried hard to control his breathing and tried to calm his inner excitement. However, Lin Feng himself did not realize that he also had a fatal attraction to Li Meiying. In his powerful strength and deep eyes, Li Meiying felt an unprecedented sense of security. Her love for him had already surpassed simple emotion and was more of a deep admiration. The two people's eyes met in the air, as if creating hot sparks. Li Meiying took the initiative to stand up and walked in front of Lin Feng. She gently hooked Lin Feng's chin with her slender fingers, and her voice was full of teasing. Will you conquer me, or will I conquer you? These words were like a raging fire, instantly igniting the desire deep in Lin Feng's heart. He stood up suddenly and pushed Li Meiying down on the sofa, and then the two of them fell into the most primitive and intense embrace. This passionate collision lasted for more than 2 hours, until Li Meiying begged desperately in Lin Feng's arms. He reluctantly ended this crazy affair. Li Meiying snuggled quietly beside Lin Feng, her fingers gently drawing circles on his chest, her thoughts running fast in her mind. Based on my understanding of Zhang Jiusheng, he will never give up. She said softly, a hint of worry in her voice. She looked up at Lin Feng and continued. I saw everything that happened today. They couldn't get in through either the door or the wall. But the ground, roof, balcony, these places may become their breakthrough points of attack. You must take precautions in advance, so as to avoid being taken advantage of by Zhang Jiusheng and his gang. As Lin Feng listened to Li Meiying's words, he couldn't help but admire her intelligence and talent. This woman is not only beautiful, but also clear-headed and able to think ahead of Zhang Jiusheng. However, he also knew in his heart that Li Meiying's worries were unnecessary. When he was building this safe house, he had already considered various possible methods of attack and took corresponding preventive measures. However, he would not tell anyone these things. However, Li Meiying's words gave Lin Feng an idea. He thought it would be a good idea to keep this smart woman by his side and have her as a servant. As the saying goes, a secretary does things when there is work to do, and a secretary does things when there is nothing to do. Chapter 80. Li Meiying twisted her body slightly, and suddenly she felt a subtle pain in her lower body. She couldn't help but frown slightly, but she felt a sense of satisfaction deep in her heart. She finally got her wish and felt another amazing side of Lin Feng. That strong and deep masculine charm made her irresistible. At this moment, she felt a strong desire to get to know this man better, wanting to be more closely bound to him. So, she plucked up her courage, looked up at Lin Feng, and said with a trembling voice. Can I stay by your side? Don't worry, I won't ask you about anything, even if you find another woman. When Lin Feng heard Li Meiying's words, he couldn't help but secretly admire her in his heart. He liked the woman's intelligence and sense of humor, and it was always so easy and pleasant to deal with her. Although Li Meiying no longer has to worry about life when she is with Zhang Jiusheng, she knows Zhang Jiusheng very well. Once the situation comes to life and death, Zhang Jiusheng will abandon her without hesitation, and may even kill her. In comparison, being with Lin Feng is much safer. Lin Feng is not only ruthless and smart, but also has a top-notch safe house and abundant supplies. More importantly, he is young, strong, and capable. At present, being able to stay with Lin Feng is the most important thing for her. Lin Feng frowned slightly, thought for a moment, and then spoke slowly. Well, if you want to stay here, then stay. But we have to have a rule. First of all, you can only stay in this room. You are not allowed to step out of the door without my permission. Secondly, you should take the initiative to do things like cleaning and cooking without my special instructions. I don't want the house to be dirty or untidy. Also, I want to remind you that the sewers here have long been frozen, so when you go to the toilet, you need to use a special plastic bag to hold the toilet paper and then throw it out through the secret door of the window. This may be a little inconvenient, but you must adapt to it. You will be responsible for this matter in the future. In other words, you will be my maid from now on. There is no free lunch here. You have to rely on your own labor to exchange for a comfortable living environment and food. Do you understand? Lin Feng's words revealed unquestionable majesty. He knew that it was impossible to keep idle people in his family. Everyone needed to work hard to survive. If Li Meiying wants to stay, she must accept this reality. After hearing what Lin Feng said, Li Meiying felt a little unwilling, but she also knew that this was the condition for her to stay here. She nodded and whispered. Remember, I will follow these rules. Lin Feng looked at her, a hint of satisfaction flashing in his eyes. He is not a saint and cannot help anyone unconditionally, although Li Meiying can meet his physical needs. But survival is more important than anything else right now. Very good. I will provide you with the necessary items and food, but you must also understand that your life will no longer be as easy as before. You need to work hard to earn your right to survive here. Li Meiying nodded again to show that she understood. She knew that Lin Feng was not an easy person to deal with, and she was already very satisfied with this result. Lin Feng's gaze inadvertently fell on Li Meiying's towering chest. He frowned slightly, as if thinking about something. Then, he raised his head, looked directly at Li Meiying, and spoke slowly. Do you know why, out of all the other women in the neighborhood, I chose to keep you at home? Li Meiying pursed her lips, a smug smile appeared on her face, and she said softly. Yes, it's because of the charm I exude. I don't know why, but I've been like this since I was a kid. I'm very popular with the opposite S***X. Even some LN women would harass me all the time. Lin Feng nodded slightly to show his agreement. You are right, you are indeed very charming and irresistible. This is one of the reasons why I chose to keep you. I don't want you to be harassed by other men outside. If Li Meiying was not Zhang Jiashen's lover, she might have been abducted by people like Biozi and Wang Bo long ago. After hearing what Lin Feng said, Li Meiying felt very fortunate that she had a good appearance and saved her life. Lin Feng continued. Besides your charm, there is another important reason. You can put yourself in the right place and understand men's psychology. This is very rare for a woman. Li Meiying was quite grateful after hearing what Lin Feng said. She knew that Lin Feng was a smart and knowledgeable man. It is a great honor for her to receive his recognition and praise. At this time, Lin Feng gently placed his hand on Li Meiying's cheek and caressed it gently. The skin as smooth as jade made him admire it. He said, "You are a very smart and sensible woman, and I admire you very much. As long as you can continue to do your duty well, I will keep you by my side." Li Meiying really enjoyed the feeling of being in Lin Feng's arms, which made her feel very safe. She was not at all disgusted by Lin Feng's behavior. Instead, she thought it was Lin Feng's love for her. Before they knew it, the two had been immersed in each other's conversation for more than an hour. Gurgle. Li Meiying's stomach suddenly protested. She looked at Lin Feng awkwardly, with a blush on her face. In fact, she had been feeling hungry for a long time, but in front of this powerful man, she did not dare to easily reveal her needs. In her opinion, she had no right to make any demands in front of Lin Feng. Seeing this, Lin Feng raised a gentle smile and pinched Li Meiying's delicate face. "Are you hungry? Let's get up and eat." Afterwards, Lin Feng prepared a sumptuous seafood dinner. The table was filled with fresh shrimps, crabs, and shellfish, exuding an enticing aroma. He also took out 2 bottles of French red wine from his collection, adding a touch of romance and sentiment to the dinner. The two sat opposite each other, enjoying this rare quiet moment. They drank until dawn and then finished their dinner. Lin Feng carried Li Meiying back to the room. This sleep is destined to be extremely long and sweet. Li Meiying lay on the soft bed. She could finally have a good night's sleep for the first time since the end of the world. Lin Feng stood outside the door and closed it gently. He took the only key from his pocket and locked the door. During this special period, it is very important to remain vigilant and principled. Chapter 81. Sun Ziyi stood in front of her house, her eyes pressed tightly against the peephole, a thrilling scene reflected in her pupils. Her heartbeat was as frantic as thunder, and every beat seemed to remind her, this is not just someone else's family matter, but a crisis closely linked to her life. She hardly slept a wink that night. The terrifying scene lingers in my mind, like a horror movie that cannot be turned off. Whenever she closed her eyes, the bloody and wailing sounds would come flooding in like a tide, making it difficult for her to breathe. If it weren't for her concern and worry for Lin Feng, she would have been unable to bear the pressure, and her courage to even look at him any longer would have disappeared completely. However, she never expected that Lin Feng would be so ruthless. The lives of more than 100 people seemed to be just numbers in his eyes, and he did not show the slightest hesitation or mercy. This kind of coldness and ruthlessness made her feel scared and even a little strange. She began to doubt whether this Lin Feng was really the person she knew. This fear and doubt made Sun Ziyi begin to hesitate, wondering whether she should continue to contact Lin Feng in the future. She was afraid that her choice would bring unpredictable consequences, and even more afraid that she would fall into deeper danger. The next day, Sun Ziyi struggled to get up from the bed with dark circles under her eyes. Her eyes were empty, as if she had lost her soul. She sat on the sofa, in a daze all day, her heart full of confusion and bewilderment. It was not until night fell that she gradually regained some sanity. She began to think calmly about the whole incident, trying to find the logic and reasons behind it. She finally understood that Lin Feng did this out of his instinct for self-preservation. If he had not acted decisively, his fate would probably have been even more tragic than those of his dead neighbors. After figuring this out, Sun Ziyi took a deep breath, mustered up her courage, and walked towards Lin Feng's door with firm steps. After tossing and turning from last night until noon today, Lin Feng finally woke up from exhaustion. He had just woken up and was about to enjoy the dinner that Li Meiying had carefully prepared for him. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. He frowned slightly, wondering who would be visiting at this time. He turned on the surveillance camera and Sun Ziyi appeared on the screen. Lin Feng suddenly realized that it was an agreement between him and Sun Ziyi that he would have dinner with her after defeating those neighbors. Li Meiying also heard the knock on the door. She turned to look at Lin Feng with a questioning expression on her face, waiting for his instructions. Lin Feng looked at Li Meiying and said softly, "Go back to the house first, I have some things to take care of." Li Meiying nodded slightly, with a gentle smile on her face, and she didn't seem unhappy about being interrupted. Lin Feng opened the door and spoke softly. "See, you're here." Sun Ziyi looked up at Lin Feng, with a complicated light flashing in her eyes. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but didn't know where to start. Lin Feng saw Sun Ziyi's hesitation, he smiled lightly and said, "I know you came to see me because of what happened last night. Come in, let's talk." Sun Ziyi nodded and followed Lin Feng into the house. She looked around, as if searching for something in particular. Lin Feng asked Sun Ziyi to sit down and poured her a cup of tea. "Ziyi, I know what happened last night has had a great impact on you. I also understand that you feel scared and unfamiliar with my cold and ruthless attack. But I hope you can understand that I did that purely out of my instinct to protect myself. If I hadn't acted decisively, I'm afraid my fate would have been even more tragic than those neighbors who died." As Sun Ziyi listened to Lin Feng's explanation, the doubts and fears in her heart gradually dissipated. She looked at Lin Feng with a determined light in her eyes. "Lin Feng, I believe you. I know you are not a cold-blooded person. But I also hope you can understand that as your friend, I am very worried about you. I don't want you to go to extremes because of what happened that night." Lin Feng didn't pay much attention to Sun Ziyi's concern. People's hearts are hidden and you never know who may stab you in the back. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." However, Sun Ziyi remained silent for a long time, kept her head down, and did not dare to look at Lin Feng. Lin Feng noticed her abnormality, but he did not ask. He had already taken good care of Sun Ziyi. Don't care about her too much and let her take herself seriously. Finally, Sun Ziyi raised her head, her eyes slightly red, and she seemed to find it difficult to speak. She took a deep breath and mustered up her courage to speak. Lin Feng, I want to know what your relationship is with the woman who came last night. Sun Ziyi had been observing the situation in the underground parking lot last night, and of course she also saw Li Meiying coming to Lin Feng's house. Lin Feng frowned slightly. This was something he had not expected, but it was nothing. There are some things that Sun Ziyi will know sooner or later, he said frankly. Her name is Li Meiying, and she lives in my house now. In just one sentence, Sun Ziyi understood the relationship between Lin Feng and Li Meiying. Hearing this answer, she couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. She originally thought that the relationship between her and Lin Feng was close enough, but now it seems that this is not the case. The appearance of Li Meiying made her feel an inexplicable dread and uneasiness. After a long time, Sun Ziyi finally mustered up her courage. She took a deep breath and he raised his head, stared into Lin Feng's eyes, and spoke carefully. Can I see her? Lin Feng smiled slightly and nodded. Of course, I'll take you there now. After saying that, Lin Feng took Sun Ziyi to the room where Li Meiying was. Lin Feng introduced the two women separately. When Li Meiying learned the purpose of Sun Ziyi's visit, she came forward warmly and led Sun Ziyi into the room. Welcome, Miss Sun, please come in. Li Meiying said with a smile, her voice was gentle and kind, making people feel comfortable and relaxed. She took Sun Ziyi's hand, then closed the door, leaving Lin Feng outside. Lin Feng looked at the closed door and didn't care. He turned and left, locked the door, and returned to the second floor. Sun Ziyi's arrival interrupted his dinner. He took out a can of instant food from the space and enjoyed it with Orlan. Orlan, what do you think those two women would talk about? Orlan raised his head and looked at Lin Feng with his black eyes, as if trying to understand what he said. However, although Orlan is smart, he is just a dog after all and cannot understand the complex emotions and topics of humans. Lin Feng looked at Orlan's confused expression and couldn't help but smile. Chapter 82. He knew he was talking to a deaf ear, but he couldn't help but guess what the conversation between the two women was about. Will you be like men, discussing women when you have nothing to do? 1 hour, 2 hours, the time seemed to become especially long, until night fell and all around fell into silence. Lin Feng's heart sank little by little as time went by, until the phone screen lit up, breaking his contemplation. He glanced at it and saw it was a message from Li Meiying, just a few simple words. Our conversation is over. Lin Feng stood up, his heart full of doubts and curiosity. He went downstairs, walked to Li Meiying's door and gently pushed it open. The scene in front of him stunned him. Sun Ziyi was sitting there with a smile on her face. Her smile was like the spring sunshine, warm and bright. Lin Feng couldn't help but look at Li Meiying, trying to read something from her expression. However, Li Meiying just smiled, and there seemed to be some secret hidden in her eyes. Lin Feng's curiosity grew even stronger. What did they talk about? Why did Sun Ziyi look so happy? Sun Ziyi seemed to notice Lin Feng's gaze. She blinked, playfully avoided the topic, and spoke instead. Please take a seat first. I'll heat up the food and we can eat soon. Lin Feng and Li Meiying sat facing each other, but neither of them spoke. There seemed to be an inexplicable atmosphere in the air, making both of them feel a little uncomfortable. Lin Feng couldn't help but start to think, what happened between these two women? After a moment, Sun Ziyi spoke. I'll go help Meiying. When Lin Feng heard this name, he couldn't help but feel surprised. Meiying? These two women have only been together for more than 2 hours, and they are already so close? He recalled the fake sisterhood between Zhou Tu and Sun Yu, and couldn't help but feel a little wary. As the saying goes, a woman's heart is as elusive as a needle in the sea. Lin Feng decided to be more careful and not let the two women have too much contact, so as to prevent them from joining forces against him. Soon, the two women filled the table with a variety of delicious food. The dishes with good color, aroma, and taste looked particularly tempting under the lights. Li Meiying waved gently to Lin Feng and said with a faint smile on her face. Brother Feng, come over for dinner, and don't forget to bring 2 bottles of red wine. We have to celebrate Miss Sun's arrival. Lin Feng looked at Li Meiying's smiling face, but felt something unusual in his heart. He tried hard to find the feeling that something was wrong, but he could not tell exactly what was wrong. He walked to the wine cabinet, selected 2 bottles of top-quality French red wine from among the many bottles, and sat down at the dining table that was already filled with food. Seeing this, Li Meiying smiled, picked up the bottle and poured wine for the 3 of them. She raised her glass and looked at Lin Feng and said, Brother Feng, I'd like to offer you this glass of wine first. Thank you for taking me in and giving me a place to stay. If it weren't for you, I would have died in this disaster very soon. I will always remember this kindness in my heart. Her voice was full of sincerity and gratitude, which moved people. Li Meiying knew very well how rare it was to find a place as safe and well-fed as Lin Feng's home in this turbulent era. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng also raised the wine glass in his hand and gently clinked it with Li Meiying's glass. This is what you earn through hard work. If you want to continue living here with me, you have to behave well. Remember, I don't keep idle people here. If you can't make a contribution, I may kick you out at any time. Although his words sounded a bit harsh, Li Meiying was not angry at all. Instead, she felt fortunate. Afterwards, the three of them raised their glasses and drank, creating a warm and harmonious atmosphere. However, Sun Ziyi seemed a little reserved, didn't say much, and her cheeks were slightly red, like a shy girl. Seeing this, Li Meiying gently kicked Sun Ziyi under the table, signaling her to relax. Sun Ziyi immediately looked up at Li Meiying, only to see her eyes slightly glancing in the direction of Lin Feng. Sun Ziyi's heart tightened and she felt even more shy, but she still mustered up her courage. He took a deep breath and then spoke softly. Lin Feng, I also want to live here, is that okay? I have heard Meiying tell me about the rules here, and I will strictly abide by them. As soon as she finished speaking, the atmosphere in the entire restaurant seemed to freeze for a moment. Lin Feng looked at her, with a complex emotion flashing in his eyes. He was silent for a while, then spoke slowly. Miss Sun, this is indeed a relatively safe place, but staying here is not as simple as just following the rules. You need to fight for it yourself. Sun Ziyi nodded, seeming to be deeply touched by Lin Feng's words. She bit her lower lip lightly, and then made a surprising move. She unbuttoned her coat and took it off, revealing the clothes underneath. Lin Feng, I am willing to do anything for you as long as you can let me stay here. Sun Ziyi's move-in seemed to be a foregone conclusion. In this community, she is not only the only doctor, but also a stunningly beautiful woman. Her arrival will undoubtedly add a lot of fun to Lin Feng. Before this, Lin Feng was actually attracted to her. After all, Sun Ziyi's charm was irresistible. However, deep in his heart, he was always unwilling to give up the vast forest of the outside world for a woman. Therefore, he always kept his distance and did not let Sun Ziyi move in. But now, things seemed to be turning around. Sun Ziyi took the initiative to ask to stay, and even expressed her willingness to let Lin Feng control her. This sudden change caught Lin Feng off guard, but he was more delighted. He said smoothly. Since you are so sincere, I will allow you to stay. But you know the rules, and I don't want any transgressions. That's your room. You can't stay there without my permission. Although her freedom was restricted, Sun Ziyi had no complaints. She knew very well that compared to her cold and lonely home, this place was like heaven. At least here, she can eat hot meals and feel a little warmth. So she gladly accepted Lin Feng's arrangement. The three of them drank 3 bottles of red wine before the dinner ended. Sun Ziyi was drunk and unconscious, and was carried back to the room by Lin Feng. When Lin Feng settled Sun Ziyi and came to Li Meiying's room, she was already lying on the bed waiting for Lin Feng's arrival. Seeing Lin Feng coming in, she teased. Why? How could you bear to have such a beauty next door? Chapter 83. Lin Feng knew that Li Meiying was asking the question even though she knew the answer, so he reached out and patted her butt and said. I have no interest in a puddle of mud. Tell me, how did you convince Sun Ziyi? Li Meiying had already guessed that Lin Feng would ask this question, so she waited for Lin Feng to lie on the bed and snuggled up to him before saying. I told her that you were too good in that aspect and I couldn't handle it alone, so she stayed. Just when Lin Feng was enjoying himself, Zhang Jiuzheng appeared in the underground parking lot again, followed by more than 50 neighbors with hideous faces. Zhang Jiuzheng stood in front of everyone, cleared his throat, and his voice revealed unquestionable firmness. Everyone, we all know that daily necessities are in short supply right now, but Lin Feng's family has abundant supplies. Yesterday, Biozi, Wangbo, and I stayed up all night and finally came up with a feasible solution. I don't believe that the floor and ceiling of Lin Feng's house are also made of steel plates. So, I decided to gather everyone again. We will split into 2 groups. One group will dig an underground passage and launch a surprise attack from the bottom of Lin Feng's house, the other way is to climb over the wall, climb to the roof, and start from the ceiling. As long as we work together, the Lin Feng family's supplies will definitely be in our pockets. His words were like a shot of adrenaline, instantly igniting everyone's fighting spirit. They picked up their tools and prepared to get to work. Roar! Defeat Lin Feng and get the supplies. The slogans came one after another, as if they were going to shake down the entire underground parking lot. However, behind the noise of the crowd, Zhang Jiuzheng quietly walked to a corner. He took out his cell phone and called Li Meiying. He has been unable to contact Li Meiying since yesterday, and he couldn't help feeling uneasy. Zhang Jiuzheng has always had special feelings for Li Meiying. She is not only beautiful, but also smart and clever. She is the perfect woman in his mind. He was deeply troubled by her disappearance, not knowing whether she had met with misfortune or was deliberately avoiding him. Zhang Jiuzheng frowned, his heart full of doubts and worries. He kept calling Li Meiying, hoping to hear her voice. Even a simple hello would make him feel at ease. However, no one answered the phone, as if Li Meiying had disappeared from this world. An inexplicable fear surged in Zhang Jiashan's heart, fearing that Li Meiying would encounter misfortune. If he knew that Li Meiying was trying her best to please Lin Feng at this moment, I wonder how he would feel. I called several times in a row, but the mechanical cannot connect tone kept echoing in my ears. Zhang Jiuzheng sighed helplessly, slowly put away his phone, turned around and walked towards the excavation site. At this time, the temperature had already dropped to freezing point, and the soil on the ground had already been frozen hard as stone. Like a thick layer of concrete. More than 20 people in the excavation team have taken turns swinging hammers. He hit the ground hard, but the effect was not obvious. Only a small hole about 10 centimeters deep was left on the ground, which looked like an insignificant scar. Zhang Jiuzheng walked to the excavation site, frowned and looked at the insignificant little pit, feeling anxious. He knew that if he didn't change the digging method, he would never be able to break through Lin Feng's defense line. He made a decisive decision, waved his hand to call a few people over, and gave instructions. Go collect the bedboards and table legs that were removed yesterday, and burn the ground before digging. This should help us penetrate the frozen soil faster. Several people took action immediately and collected some wood in a short while. Zhang Jiuzheng directed them to light the wood, and the blazing flames instantly illuminated the cold land. The heat from the flames gradually melted the frozen layer of the ground, and the excavation team swung their hammers again to start a new round of excavation. After several hours of hard work, the team finally managed to dig through the frozen soil. Continue digging towards the bottom of Lin Feng's villa. Although progress is still slow, but Zhang Jiuzheng has already seen the dawn of victory. He firmly believes that as long as everyone works together, we will definitely be able to break through Lin Feng's defenses and obtain the supplies they desperately need. Let's talk about another group. Beauties and Wang Bo led more than 20 neighbors. Stepping out of the dark basement, I faced the wind and snow outside. Since the cold wave hit, these people have hardly ever stepped out of their hiding places. The outside world is both strange and dangerous to them. Although the temperature in the basement was almost the same as outside, the cold wind outside was like countless sharp knives, piercing into the bone marrow. As soon as everyone came out, they felt a strong chill. They all clasped their hands over their chests, trying to block the biting cold wind. Achoo! This is so cold. A man was shivering with cold and unconsciously retracted his steps, trying to retreat back to the warm basement. Seeing this, Beauties tightened his cotton jacket, walked in front of the crowd and spoke in a loud voice. I know everyone is very cold now. But this is the most direct way for us to enter Lin Feng's house. Just think about it, once we succeed, we will have endless supplies and we won't have to worry about our livelihood anymore. Wang Bo followed suit. There must be a beautiful woman at Lin Feng's house. Think about it, given Lin Feng's condition, he is undoubtedly a wealthy man, and the woman around him must be stunningly beautiful. At that time, the first person who enters Lin Feng's house can not only choose the supplies at will, but also possess his woman. The two people singing in unison was like a shot of adrenaline, instantly igniting everyone's fighting spirit. There will always be brave men when there is a big reward, not to mention when there is a beautiful woman by your side. In this doomsday, survival has become so difficult, and being able to have a glimmer of hope in the company of beautiful women is undoubtedly the life they most yearn for. Damn it, let's fight. I'll starve to death if I don't go in anyway, so I might as well give it a try. That's right. The timid ones will die of starvation, and the bold ones will die of gluttony. Why should Lin Feng enjoy happiness alone? I'm determined to take his woman. With these two people taking the lead, everyone expressed their opinions one after another, and the steps that had originally retreated due to the cold became firm and powerful. However, as they struggled through the thick snow, when they finally arrived at the outskirts of Lin Feng's villa, the scene before them stunned them all. The wall of the villa that I thought I could climb easily is now covered with a thick layer of ice crystals. It was like being covered by a layer of crystal clear mirror, so smooth that it was almost untouchable. Beauties looked at the scene in front of him, his brows furrowed, and a feeling of helplessness surged in his heart. Chapter 84. They had not anticipated this situation before and originally thought that as long as they climbed up the wall, they would be able to enter the villa smoothly. Now it seems that this plan is obviously not feasible. Wang Bo walked to the wall, reached out and gently touched the layer of ice crystals, with a thoughtful expression on his face. He turned and said to Beauties, Brother Biao, although this ice crystal is hard, it is not a steel plate after all. We can try to use tools to break it open in turn and make a ladder that we can climb up. That way, we can climb up. Beauties listened to Wang Bo's suggestion. Although he felt that this method was a bit clumsy, he had no better choice at the moment. He nodded and said to everyone, Wang Bo is right. We have no other options now. We can only try this method. Everyone take turns smashing the wall, be careful not to hurt yourself. So, everyone took out the tools they brought with them and started taking turns smashing the wall. Although the process is difficult, everyone understands that this is the only way they can solve the dilemma at the moment. As time went by, gaps gradually appeared on the wall. Although there is still a long way to go before it can form the shape of a ladder, it at least gives them hope. However, despite their great efforts, the results were disappointing. The ice crystals on the wall were extremely smooth. They had no professional climbing equipment at all, so if they stepped on them they would slip and fall flat on their faces. Beauties looked at the miserable appearance of the crowd and couldn't help feeling powerless. He knew that they had tried their best, but reality cruelly told them that this method would not work. Brother Biao, what should we do? Beauties took a deep breath and tried to keep himself calm. He understood that they now needed to rethink their strategy and could not continue to waste time and energy on this ineffective effort. Everyone take a break first, we have to think of a new solution. Beauties said to everyone. Everyone sat down, breathing heavily, their hearts filled with disappointment and helplessness. They knew that the road ahead would be more difficult, but they had no way out. In this cold apocalypse, survival has become so difficult. They originally thought that finding Lin Feng's home would give them a glimmer of hope. But now it seems that this hope has become slim. At this moment, Wang Bo spoke again. Brother Biao, I have an idea. With so many of us, we can form a human ladder. After hearing this, Beauties' eyes flashed with a gleam, and he understood what Wang Bo meant. Although this method is risky and prone to injury, there seems to be no better choice at the moment. Okay, let's try this method. Beauties made up his mind, turned to the crowd and said, Everyone, get ready. We need to build a human ladder to go up. So, everyone started to take action. They were arranged in order of height and weight. Wang Bo was the lightest and was arranged to be the last one to go up. Although he was extremely reluctant, he had to go ahead at this critical moment. Despite their carefulness, the process of building a human ladder was still full of difficulties and dangers. The freezing temperature made everyone's hands frozen stiff, but they still held each other tightly, fearing any mistakes. Finally, after great effort, they successfully built a human ladder. The person at the top also climbed up the wall successfully. He stepped carefully on the ice crystals, climb up step by step until you finally reach the top of the villa. However, when they successfully climbed up the wall, they found that their hands were already red from the cold. Frostbite has even occurred in some places. But they didn't care about all that and just cheered excitedly because they finally found the way to Lin Feng's house. I'm coming up. I'm coming up. Wang Bo shouted excitedly, as if he was already in Lin Feng's warm home, enjoying the company of the beautiful woman. After hearing this, Biozi was excited and looked up quickly. He saw the man standing on the roof of the villa, waving at them. Quick, find a way to break open the roof. Biozi shouted impatiently. Wang Boren immediately took action, picked up the tools in his hands, and began to lift up the roof tiles, preparing to smash through the roof. Ding dong! A crisp metallic collision sound echoed in the cold air. Wang Bo stood there in a daze, his eyes wide open, and he was wailing in his heart. This roof is also made of steel plates. It's really weird. At this moment, 2 more people climbed up with difficulty. They came to Wang Bo breathlessly and saw him slumped on the roof. His face was filled with despair, and his heart couldn't help but tighten. One of them asked hurriedly. How is it? Did it break through? Can we get in? Wang Bo was no longer in the mood to answer them. He lowered his head and said nothing. Seeing this, the other person couldn't help but pick up the tools next to Wang Bo and smashed them hard towards the ceiling. However, after a loud ding-dong sound, the tool bounced back as if it had hit a hard iron plate. Due to the excessive force, the man lost his grip on the tool and it flew out. It drew an arc in the air, and then fell to the ground in the distance with a pop. The man used too much force and staggered, almost falling. He tried to steady himself hastily, but ultimately he failed to keep his balance, his foot slipped, and he fell to the ground. With a loud thump, he fell heavily to the ground, and died after struggling for a few times. At this time, in the bedroom of the villa, Li Meiying was riding on Lin Feng, and the two were passionately entangled. However, the sudden sound interrupted their joy. Li Meiying said breathlessly. Feng, brother Feng, there seems to be some movement outside, did you hear it? Lin Feng was immersed in passion at the moment and didn't care about so many things. He had already guessed that it was Zhang Jiuzheng and his gang who were causing trouble outside, so he said it nonchalantly. Don't worry, no one can come in, let's continue. After saying that, he continued to immerse himself in Li Meiying's warmth and softness, enjoying the rare happy moment in this apocalyptic world. Wang Bo led a group of defeated soldiers and returned to the underground parking lot in a dejected manner. He felt heavy-hearted, as if he was carrying a heavy burden, and every step he took was extremely difficult. His heart was filled with anticipation, hoping that Zhang Jiuzheng would bring some good news. However, when they arrived at the excavation site, the scene before them made their hearts sink completely. Zhang Jiuzheng and his gang were also dejected, sitting on the ground, staring at each other, without saying a word. That expression was exactly the same as Wang Bo and the others, and it was obvious that they had also encountered setbacks. Chapter 85. Wang Bo's heart sank. He knew without asking that the situation on their side was not much better. He walked forward, squatted down, and looked at Zhang Jiuzheng. The ground is also made of steel plates, so you can't get in. Zhang Jiuzheng finally spoke, his voice revealing an indescribable frustration. Wang Bo sighed and shook his head helplessly. He felt a sense of powerlessness, as if all his efforts had come to nothing. The roof is also impossible to get in. Everyone's hearts seemed to be swept by a gust of cold wind, leaving behind a deep feeling of powerlessness. Although they were only slightly injured, their wounds had already begun to become red, swollen, and inflamed, and the pain was as if they were burned by fire. In this desolate end of the world, they dare not hope to get a trace of antibiotics. Even the most common anti-inflammatory drugs have become an unattainable luxury. Especially Wang Bo, he was used to a life of luxury and had never experienced such a difficult situation. Since the end of the world, he seemed to have fallen from heaven to hell, and was repeatedly suppressed and attacked by Lin Feng. This put his body and mind under unprecedented pressure. It felt like a heavy rock was pressing on his chest, making it almost impossible for him to breathe. Ah damn Lin Feng, you are simply not a human being. Wang Bo suddenly let out a roar, his voice filled with endless anger and unwillingness. His shouts echoed in the empty space, startling everyone. However, although Wang Bo's words expressed everyone's thoughts, they did not shout as loudly as Wang Bo did to vent their emotions. They know that doing so will not help at all and will only make themselves more upset. So they chose to remain silent, quietly packed up the tools they brought and planned to go home. At this moment, a burst of hurried footsteps came from far away, and everyone's heartbeats accelerated instantly. They instinctively clenched the tools in their hands, their nerves tense, ready to resist at any time. They were worried that Lin Feng had come to them and was ready to take revenge on them. However, when the footsteps got closer, everyone looked up and found that it was Sun Yu and Wei Wei coming. The appearance of these two women surprised everyone, but also made them feel relieved. Biozi looked at the two of them, his brows furrowed, his heart filled with worry. He was worried that these neighbors, who were already on the verge of collapse, would lose their minds in despair and anger. Do something irreparable to Sun Yu and Wei Wei. After all, these two women are nominally his women. Biozi hurried forward and said. Why are you here? However, Sun Yu did not answer Biozi's question. She walked straight to the front of the crowd. He glanced around calmly and then said. Why don't you try to walk through the balcony? There is a huge French window on the third floor of Lin Feng's house. If you can't even break the glass, don't call yourself a man anymore. Although Sun Yu's words were blunt and even a little harsh, they were like a fire that once again ignited hope in everyone's hearts. They began to talk among themselves, and some of them suddenly realized and slapped their heads and said. Yet, why didn't we think of such a simple question? God has not wronged me. Lin Feng, you wait for your death. In an instant, everyone's morale was completely ignited, and they were full of energy as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Without anyone's command, they ran out frantically. As soon as they arrived in front of the villa, they saw the body that fell from the roof, but it did not affect their determination at all. With their previous experience of climbing the roof, they quickly organized a human ladder this time. Dozens of people worked together and successfully climbed to the balcony on the third floor. Bang, bang, bang. Everyone took tools and smashed them madly towards the huge floor-to-ceiling window. Lin Feng's battle was nearing its end, and the loud noises of smashing and smashing coming from upstairs made him frown. He didn't expect that Zhang Jiuzheng and his gang had been making trouble for so long and were still unwilling to give up. He patted Li Meiying's butt gently and spoke softly. Hurry up, I want to go meet those neighbors who don't know what's good for them. Li Meiying's heartbeat accelerated at Lin Feng's words, even though she had tried hard enough. But it still could not meet Lin Feng's speed requirements. Her heart trembled slightly, but she couldn't refuse Lin Feng's request, so she could only grit her teeth and speed up her movements. Finally, with the tacit cooperation of the two, 10 minutes later, this battle full of joy and passion finally came to an end. Lin Feng, wearing only a pair of shorts and shirtless, walked out of Li Meiying's room. Brother Feng, you have to be careful. At this time, Li Meiying had developed a special feeling for Lin Feng. Not only because Lin Feng's family had a good environment and plenty of food, what's more important is Lin Feng's masculine charm and abundant physical strength. Lin Feng turned around, gave her a comforting smile and said. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Afterwards, Lin Feng walked leisurely to the third floor. As he went higher, the noise of smashing and destroying things became louder and louder. He came to the third floor. When the door was opened, the lights came on instantly. The strong light hurt the eyes of the people outside the window, and they all stretched out their hands to block the light. After everyone got used to it, they saw Lin Feng sitting on a chair in front of the floor-to-ceiling window with a cup of hot coffee. At this moment, the environment inside and outside formed a sharp contrast. The room where Lin Feng was warm and comfortable, with a fire burning in the fireplace. He himself, with his bare chest, lay on a white lounge chair like a landlord, enjoying his leisure time. The coffee at hand is steaming, emitting an enticing aroma. The key point is that Orlan was lying at Lin Feng's feet, gnawing on a large piece of beef. You can tell at a glance that the beef is top-quality Wagyu. This scene drove the neighbors on the balcony completely crazy. As they looked at Lin Feng's extravagant life, the jealousy and anger in their hearts burned like flames. They smashed the French windows with all their might, not caring at all even though their knuckles were hurt. Brothers, work harder and kill this BD. Follow my rhythm, 1, 2, 3. Push harder. Bang. The glass made a loud noise as everyone smashed it. However, Lin Feng just held the coffee in his hand and quietly enjoyed the show. Humph, even if you use all your strength, you still can't break my window. The entire floor-to-ceiling window is made of bulletproof glass specially designed for the protection level of the head of state. This kind of glass is not only strong and durable, but also has excellent light transmittance, making the indoor light bright and soft. In terms of bulletproof effect, this glass is even more outstanding. Chapter 86. Ordinary pistol fire is child's play for it, and even small bombs can't shake it at all. As expected, as the group of people continued to smash things, they gradually realized that something was wrong. They originally thought that the window was made of plexiglass and could be broken with just a few hard hits. However, more than a dozen of them took turns smashing it for a long time, but they couldn't even create a crack. Brother Biao, something is wrong. This doesn't seem to be ordinary glass. One of the men couldn't help but remind him. When Biaozi heard this, he woke up from his dream. He stopped what he was doing and looked at the window carefully. He found that the texture of this window was very hard and the sound it made when knocked was different from that of ordinary glass. At this time, Wang Bo calmly took out a thick nail, and the hammer in his hand was also ready to go. He aimed at the corner of the French window, where the glass was most vulnerable. Then he took a deep breath and smashed the hammer into the nail with all his might. Everyone held their breath, expecting the glass to shatter under the blow of the hammer, forming a net-like crack. After all, this method has always worked when it comes to destroying car windshields, and they believe it will be no exception this time. However, what is unexpected is that the floor-to-ceiling windows seem to have an indestructible magic. No matter how hard Wang Bo knocked, the window remained standing without even a crack. Everyone's eyes were filled with surprise and confusion, they couldn't believe their eyes. What the hell is this glass? Biaozi couldn't help but exclaim, his voice full of reluctance and anger. It should be bulletproof glass. One of the men guessed hesitantly. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell into a brief silence. Everyone suddenly realized that the window was made of such advanced protective materials, no wonder they couldn't destroy it easily. Faced with this rock-solid bulletproof glass, everyone began to feel despair. They originally thought that with the tools and strength in their hands, they could easily break through the window and enter the room. However, reality dealt them a heavy blow. Beauties clenched his fists, his eyes revealing a hint of unwillingness. He couldn't accept the fact that his way was blocked by a glass. He looked around for another way out, but soon discovered that the huge French window is like an indestructible barrier. Every inch is tightly wrapped with specially made bulletproof glass, which is seamless and impeccable. No. Lin Feng, I will fight you. Everything in this house belongs to me, Lin Feng. I want to eat your food, live in your house, and sleep with your women. Women. You reminded me of this. Sun Ziyi was still in a deep dream when she suddenly felt a chill. It turned out that someone had gently lifted her quilt. Before she could react, she was gently picked up by a pair of strong arms. A scream broke the tranquility of the early morning, and Sun Ziyi opened her eyes in panic. After seeing clearly that it was Lin Feng, the tension in her heart slowly dissipated, and she remembered that she was now living in Lin Feng's home. What are you going to do? Sun Ziyi asked shyly, with a ripple in her heart, thinking that Lin Feng wanted to spend some intimate time with her. Although she was a little shy, she was mentally prepared. So she took the initiative to hug Lin Feng's neck, closed her eyes, and waited for what might happen next. However, Lin Feng gently let her go, letting her fall back onto the soft bed. What are you thinking about? Hurry up and get dressed and come upstairs with me. Sun Ziyi's cheeks suddenly turned red. She felt extremely embarrassed, as if Lin Feng had seen through her thoughts. She was a traditional and conservative girl, and at this moment she really wanted to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. Although she was nervous, Sun Ziyi quickly picked up the clothes on the bedside table and put them on, then followed Lin Feng to the third floor. As soon as she went upstairs, she heard fierce smashing and smashing sounds, and her heart tightened. Could it be that Zhang Jiashan's gang broke in? She held onto the corner of Lin Feng's clothes tightly and walked cautiously to the floor-to-ceiling window. I saw a dozen neighbors gathered there, 2 of whom were smashing the floor-to-ceiling windows frantically, making a deafening noise. Sun Ziyi's heart was in her throat, fearing that they would break in through the window. Lin Feng seemed unusually calm. He sat on a recliner and patted his legs to signal Sun Ziyi to sit down. Sun Ziyi hesitated for a moment, but still sat on his lap obediently. She snuggled up to Lin Feng, feeling his warmth and security, and the fear in her heart slowly subsided. The dozen people on the balcony were still immersed in the frenzy of smashing and looting. At this moment, they seemed to be pulled by an invisible force and turned their eyes to Sun Ziyi. When they saw Sun Ziyi's graceful figure leaning on Lin Feng's legs, they couldn't help but reveal envy on their faces. At this time, Sun Ziyi finally understood Lin Feng's intention, and she smiled softly. He reached out, picked up a plump grape on the coffee table, and gently put it into Lin Feng's mouth. Only separated by a layer of transparent window, the crowd outside was exposed to the biting wind and snow, shivering with cold. But the scene inside the window was completely different. Lin Feng was lying leisurely on a comfortable recliner, with the gentle and lovely Sun Ziyi sitting on his lap. The 2 of them held delicious food in their hands, whispered occasionally, and enjoyed the rare quiet time. This sharp contrast made the neighbors outside so jealous that their eyes turned red and they almost went crazy. They uttered vicious curses and shouted at the top of their lungs, their eyes filled with resentment and anger. Lin Feng, UBD, you will get your comeuppance. If you have the guts, get out of here. I want to challenge you in a duel. Only the winner will be able to enjoy this kind of life. Get out here, you coward. I'm going to kill you. Everything here should belong to me. Lin Feng listened to the scolding outside, but remained unmoved. He pulled Sun Ziyi into his arms and kissed her red lips hard. Sun Ziyi lowered her head shyly, a blush appearing on her face. Feeling the softness and warmth of Sun Ziyi's body, Lin Feng felt an inexplicable excitement in his heart. He always felt that since his rebirth, his desires in certain areas seemed to have become stronger than before. Sun Ziyi gradually noticed the subtle changes in Lin Feng's body. The strong masculine scent made her heart beat faster and her cheeks slightly warm. However, she was well aware of her identity and position, and she did not dare to make any moves without Lin Feng's clear instructions. Chapter 87. She could only lie obediently in Lin Feng's arms, like a docile kitten, allowing his arms to wrap her tightly. The crowd outside the window was already numbed by Lin Feng's heavenly life. They watched the top safe house with its fireplace emitting warm light. The generator was running steadily, there was plenty of food piled up, and even the pet dog was enjoying the delicious beef. However, the most enviable thing is the top-notch beautiful doctor. She actually sat so quietly in Lin Feng's arms. All of this is simply unbelievable and makes people doubt whether they are still living in reality. They smashed the objects for more than half an hour, and each blow was accompanied by anger and helplessness in their hearts. Finally, exhausted, they had to stop what they were doing, squat on the ground, and gasped for breath. Their eyes were still fixed on Lin Feng's seemingly comfortable life. There was an envy in his eyes that was so strong that it almost dripped with water. Yes, they gave up completely. This kind of meaningless struggle will only accelerate their death. Suddenly, a loud thump broke the silent atmosphere. When everyone looked back, they saw a person who could not bear the huge psychological gap and jumped off the balcony in despair. This scene made the already disheartened crowd even more heartbroken. With the temperature at -40°C and the heavy blow, their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably. Inside the house, Sun Ziyi lay in Lin Feng's arms and spoke softly. Looking at their appearance, it seems like they are about to give up. Hearing this, Lin Feng slowly opened his eyes and said lightly. Can't hold on? That won't do. I have to give them something extra. After saying that, he gently pushed Sun Ziyi away, stood up from the recliner, walked to the coffee table and picked up a bottle. The next scene shocked the people on the balcony. Lin Feng took out a lighter and ignited some liquid in the bottle. Then, a hole appeared above their heads and a ball of fire flew out of it. As a means of counterattack, Lin Feng's house was designed with observation holes in the front and back, and there was more than one. The bottle drew a yellow arc in the air and then fell to the ground in the astonished eyes of everyone. Bang! With a crisp sound, a blazing flame instantly burst into flames. Molotov cocktails, even in such an ultra-low temperature environment, gasoline can still burn quickly. Releases a lot of heat. The flames quickly blocked their retreat, the sparks flew onto their bodies, and their down jackets and cotton pants were instantly ignited. The balcony was not big to begin with, and when the clothes of the dozen people were stained with gasoline, a raging fire immediately ignited. They screamed in fear and tried to put out the flames on their bodies, but in this extremely cold environment, the fire grew stronger and stronger. Soon, the entire balcony turned into a sea of a fire. Neighbors who had originally held out a glimmer of hope could only struggle to survive in the raging fire. Sun Ziyi screamed and immediately covered her mouth with her hands. This was not the first time she had seen Lin Feng's cruelty. However, watching from such a close distance made her terrified, but she didn't dare to leave. I can only close my eyes and hope that all this will end soon. However, Lin Feng did not seem to stop because of Sun Ziyi's fear. He calmly picked up the Molotov cocktail and threw two more without hesitation. Pa! The sound of a Molotov cocktail falling to the ground echoed in the night sky, followed by the sound of flames blazing. The dozen or so people were all huddled in a corner of the balcony at this moment, their figures looked so helpless and desperate in the firelight. However, the space on the balcony was limited and they had no way to hide from the raging flames. Under the light of the fire, more than a dozen people hugged each other tightly, forming a huge fireball. It is particularly dazzling in the dark night. Biozi was in the innermost part of the fireball. There were relatively few flames on his body, but he had no time to care about them at the moment. He looked up at the scattered snowflakes in the sky, his heart filled with endless anticipation, hoping that the snowflakes would fall heavier and put out the flames on his body. Zhang Jiuzheng, who led those who did not climb onto the balcony, also witnessed this scene. The blazing flames were particularly dazzling in the night, as if they were going to swallow up the entire world. He shouted loudly. Jump, jump quickly. There is still a chance of survival if you jump down. If you stay up there, you will be burned to death. As soon as he finished speaking, several fireballs fell from the sky. Apparently, someone took his advice and chose to jump off the balcony. However, the darkness of the night prevented them from seeing clearly what was happening below. If it falls in a place with thick snow, there may be a glimmer of hope for survival, but if it falls in other places, it will be crippled even if it does not die. Just as Lin Feng admired the courage of those people, there was a sudden loud bang, which frightened Sun Ziyi so much that she trembled all over. She opened her eyes and saw a ferocious face BG against the French window desperately. Help, please save me. This scene scared Sun Ziyi so much that she quickly ran and hid behind Lin Feng, fearing that the man would rush in. Lin Feng calmly observed the situation outside. He knew that this survival game was far from over. The shrill screams echoed in the night sky, and the pain like a knife seemed to be able to penetrate the darkness, touching the depths of everyone's soul. This heart-wrenching sound, it seems to have magic power, making everyone who hears it feel the same way. Feel the endless pain and despair. However, in this cruel world, not everyone hopes that the person on the balcony can escape the clutches of death. For some people, one more death means one more piece of food, and one more hope of survival. Hua drops of water began to fall from the sky. The sudden rain instantly made people on the balcony excited. Look, it's raining. Wow, great, it's raining, we are saved. The people on the balcony spread out instantly, turning around and letting the rain soak their bodies. I hope this rain can put out the fire in my body as soon as possible and take away the pain and suffering. However, in this joyous atmosphere, no one noticed that this water did not come from the sky, but was sprayed from the high-pressure water gun in Lin Feng's hand. Lin Feng's goal was not to let them die simply, but to make them live a life worse than death, suffer torture, and then die in pain. In his own way, he wants to make these people struggle in despair and experience all the sufferings of the world. It hurts and it itches. What's going on? Is there poison in this rainwater? Chapter 88. That's right, Lin Feng added chili water into the water. This mixture is extremely powerful. When poured on a wound, it will not only cause severe pain, it will also make people feel extremely itchy, as if countless ants are gnawing at their skin. What's more terrifying is that this pepper water will accelerate the infection of the wound, making the pain even more unbearable. Lin Feng watched all this indifferently, without any ripples in his heart. What he wanted was the pain and despair of these people. Only in this way could he feel a little satisfaction and pleasure. At this time, Wang Bo had already noticed that it was Lin Feng who did it, but he did not say anything. While everyone was still in shock, he grabbed a man next to him and fell down the stairs. It was obvious that the man was used as a cushion to avoid being killed by the fall. Biozi and his two men saw this scene clearly, and they also jumped down like Wang Bo. When the others recovered from their shock, they looked around in panic. I was afraid that I would be the next target to be pushed down. They held their weapons nervously. I was prepared for defense, but the fear in my heart was hard to conceal. However, time is running out for them. Their clothes were soaked by the rain and began to freeze. The cold feeling spread throughout their bodies, making them tremble involuntarily. If they don't leave now, they will be frozen into statues and stay here forever. However, Lin Feng did not intend to let them escape so easily. He stood on the balcony, looking at the people below with cold eyes, a cruel smile on his lips. Damn it, if you want to die, don't die on my balcony, it's unlucky. Then increase the amount of water sprayed. Strong streams of water poured down like a rainstorm, washing all the remaining people off the balcony. Life or death is up to fate. When she heard the outside gradually fall silent, Sun Ziyi carefully moved her hand away from her eyes. He slowly leaned his head out and looked at the empty balcony. She was doubtful, yet also a little nervous, and asked with a trembling voice. Are they all dead? Lin Feng turned his head slightly, looked at Sun Ziyi's frightened expression, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He said it lightly. I don't know, but even if I don't die today, I will die soon. Lin Feng's words revealed his indifference and ruthlessness towards life, which frightened Sun Ziyi. As a doctor, she takes saving lives as her duty, but at this moment, she found herself standing with a murderer. This sense of irony made her feel mixed emotions. However, Sun Ziyi knew very well that in this doomsday, survival was the greatest rule. She recalled the greed and cruelty of those people, and a surge of indignation surged in her heart. She firmly believed that her choice was correct, otherwise, she would probably become one of those who died tragically in this disaster. After figuring it all out, Sun Ziyi walked over to Lin Feng and gently took his arm. She looked up at him and said, I think those people deserve to die. Who made them want your supplies? After hearing what Sun Ziyi said, Lin Feng's eyes flashed with surprise, but then he regained his composure. In the end of the world, everyone will change in order to survive. Li Meiying had already dressed neatly and was sitting in the room, waiting quietly. The continuous sounds of smashing and screaming from upstairs were like sharp arrows piercing her heart. She was terrified and worried about Lin Feng's safety. She clenched her hands tightly, her eyes full of worry. Every sound made her heart beat faster, worrying whether Lin Feng was injured. However, she knew that she could not act rashly and could not walk out of the closed door. Otherwise, she would have rushed to check on Lin Feng's condition without hesitation. Finally, when the door slowly opened and Lin Feng appeared in her sight intact, the heavy stone in Li Meiying's heart finally fell to the ground. She immediately stood up, walked eagerly to Lin Feng, and threw herself into his arms. Are you okay? I was so scared. Lin Feng gently stroked Li Meiying's hair and said with a smile. How could anything happen to me? You should be worried about Zhang Jiuzheng and his gang. Lin Feng's words brought Li Meiying back to her senses. She remembered that she was once Zhang Jiashan's lover. She was afraid that Lin Feng would be angry about this, so she explained hurriedly. No, I won't worry about that old man. Meeting you is my greatest happiness. Lin Feng looked at Li Meiying's eager and sincere eyes and felt a sense of satisfaction in his heart. Regardless of whether Li Meiying was sincere or not, her words made Lin Feng feel very comfortable. He knew that Li Meiying had already made her position clear and was wholeheartedly attached to him. In the kitchen, Sun Ziyi was busy preparing breakfast. The pot on the stove was steaming and emitting an enticing aroma. Seeing this scene, Li Meiying immediately put down what she was doing, walked quickly into the kitchen, and offered to help. The two of them were busy and chatting at the same time, and the atmosphere was harmonious and warm. They all knew in their hearts that at this special moment, there should not be any conflicts between them. Because they all knew that Lin Feng was a decisive and resolute person. Once there was a disagreement between them, he would kick them out of the house without hesitation. After breakfast, Li Meiying took the excuse that she did not get enough rest last night and offered to go back to her room to rest. She closed the door gently, leaving the space for Lin Feng and Sun Ziyi. Sun Ziyi stood at the kitchen door, watching Li Meiying's departing back, feeling a surge of complicated emotions in her heart. Of course she knew what would happen next. Lin Feng was very strong in that aspect and she might not be able to handle it alone. Thinking of what Li Meiying had said before, Sun Ziyi couldn't help but feel a little ashamed, and her cheeks turned slightly red. However, Sun Ziyi knew that at this moment she needed to take the initiative to please Lin Feng. She couldn't let Lin Feng mistakenly think that she didn't want to sleep with him, otherwise he might turn around and go find Li Meiying. So, Sun Ziyi took a deep breath and mustered up the courage to walk towards Lin Feng. Sun Ziyi stood in front of Lin Feng, her heart beating faster and her cheeks slightly red. She slowly took off her clothes, gradually revealing her slender and elegant curves in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at her, his eyes flashing with admiration and desire. Although Sun Ziyi was a little shy, she still plucked up the courage to show her body to Lin Feng. He gently put his arms around Sun Ziyi's waist and held her tightly in his arms. The two felt each other's breath, and their heartbeats gradually became synchronized. Lin Feng lowered his head and whispered in Sun Ziyi's ear. You are really beautiful. I have been waiting for you for a long time. Chapter 89. Next, Sun Ziyi finally realized the powerful side of Lin Feng. However, as an inexperienced girl, she could not withstand Lin Feng's fierce attack at all, so she had no choice but to ask Li Meiying for help. Li Meiying's joining made this already fierce battle even more intense. Sometimes she personally took part in the battle, leading the battle with her skillful techniques and agile posture, sometimes he stood aside and calmly directed Sun Ziyi. Under Li Meiying's guidance, Sun Ziyi also gradually grew up in the battle. She learned with an open mind, observed carefully, and absorbed various postures and techniques from Li Meiying. Sun Ziyi gradually relaxed her tense nerves and began to enjoy the exciting feeling. At the same time, I also felt the joy of being a woman. After an unknown amount of time, this battle without the smoke of gunpowder finally came to an end. The three of them slept in each other's arms, tired but satisfied. It was not until dusk that Lin Feng woke up from his sleep. He opened his sleepy eyes and looked at the two women sleeping beside him. He did not disturb them, knowing that they had made great efforts in the battle during the day and needed a good rest now. So Lin Feng got up quietly and went to the kitchen. He took out many of the world's top ingredients from the space: abalone, lobster, tuna, matsu take, cordyceps. He prepared these specially for the two girls, and planned to cook them himself as a reward for them. Soon, a mouth-watering aroma wafted out of the kitchen. When the two girls were awakened by the aroma of food, Lin Feng had already decorated the dining table warmly and elegantly. Are you awake? Come and try the delicious food I prepared for you. Sun Ziyi and Li Meiying smiled at each other. They got up from the bed, put on loose pajamas, walked to the dining table and sat down. Looking at the table full of delicious food, their eyes lit up. Wow, it smells so good. Lin Feng, you are so amazing. Sun Ziyi exclaimed. Thank you for the compliment, I'm glad you like it. Lin Feng responded with a smile, enjoying the two women picking food for him and pouring wine for him. The three of them sat around the dining table, enjoying this rare tranquility and warmth. However, the good times did not last long. Lin Feng's brows suddenly furrowed, as if he was troubled by something. Li Meiying noticed something unusual. She glanced towards the back door and then spoke softly to Lin Feng. Brother Feng, I heard some noise outside, like there was someone there. The three people at the table stopped what they were doing almost at the same time and pricked up their ears to listen carefully. Sun Siki saw that Lin Feng looked unhappy. She understood how Lin Feng felt at the moment. So without waiting for Lin Feng to speak, she stood up and walked towards the back door. She approached the peephole cautiously and peeked out. She was surprised by the scene outside the door. She saw dozens of neighbors kneeling on the ground in an orderly manner. Their heads were bowed as if in repentance. They shouted in unison, Lin Feng, we were wrong, please forgive us. There are also people responsible for filming all of this. They send the videos to the group and call on more people to join this. Sun Ziyi returned to the dining table and told Lin Feng everything that happened outside. Lin Feng, what should we do? We can't just let them kneel at the door forever. This is not a solution. After listening to Sun Ziyi's story, Lin Feng looked at her deeply. From her words, we can tell that she has softened her heart. On the other hand, Li Meiying's expression remained consistent, calm and firm. Brother Feng, don't be moved by these people. They are blackmailing you morally. Once you help them, they will be like parasites, constantly asking for more from you, endlessly. Lin Feng did not respond to the two women. He picked up his phone and turned on the surveillance footage. I saw that a large group of people had gathered outside, a black mass, surging like a tide. People kept coming over and joining the kneeling team. Some people were worried that Lin Feng couldn't hear their calls, so they picked up their phones. Record yourself kneeling and kowtowing, and then send it to the group. In the video, they looked haggard, their voices choked, and they kept begging Lin Feng. Lin Feng, I'm almost starving. Please give me something to eat, even a pack of instant noodles will do. What's more, some people even knocked their foreheads until they bled in order to show their sincerity. I have an 80-year-old mother and a baby. I don't want anything. I just hope you can help my family. However, their true feelings did not win everyone's sympathy. Someone immediately exposed their lies. FKU, you are a bachelor for 1,000 years, where did you get this child? Looking at the actions of these neighbors, Lin Feng just shook his head slightly. The corner of his mouth curled up into an arc that seemed like a smile, revealing an indescribable evil charm. He was not moved by these people, but found them somewhat amusing. He picked up his phone, shot a video as well, and sent it to the group. In the picture, there is a large table full of delicious food, filled with fragrance, making people salivate. He sat at the table, chatting happily and laughing with two beautiful ladies, Li Meiying and Sun Ziyi. You really don't have to be like this. It makes me feel bad watching this. Look, seeing you like this, I can't even eat. I can only sit here and admire the beauty of two beauties. As soon as this video was released, it immediately caused an uproar in the group. Everyone saw the table of top-notch food, the dishes that looked and smelled delicious. They were rarely seen before the end of the world, let alone in these difficult times. Seeing this scene, those who were kneeling on the ground begging for help cried even louder and kowtowed even harder. Lin Feng, the three of you can't finish all this food, just give us the leftovers. Do you still need a dog at home? Don't worry, I will bite whoever you tell me to bite, all I ask is for you to give me something to eat. I was born to be a licker. I promise to lick you comfortably. The neighbors' eyes were attracted by the delicious food on the table like a magnet. However, some people's eyes quietly fell on Sun Ziyi and Li Meiying. A strong sense of uneasiness surged in Chu Hanyu's heart. She immediately took her cell phone and hurried into Zhang Yading's room. Yating, have you seen the video Lin Feng posted in the group? The two beauties next to him are so beautiful that they are breathtaking. What do you think we should do if he ignores us in the future? Chu Hanyu's words revealed deep worry. At present, the reason why Chu Hanyu's family does not have to worry about food is that it was all because she and Zhang Yading exchanged their bodies for Lin Feng. But now, seeing the beauty of Li Meiying and Sun Ziyi, they felt an unprecedented crisis. Chapter 90. Zhang Yading was also holding her phone, nervously watching the messages in the group. Her face was also filled with worry. Sister-in-law, what should we do? Why don't we go find Lin Feng? If he ignores us, we will really starve to death. Chu Hanyu hesitated for a moment after hearing this. She knew very well that it was not a wise move to go find Lin Feng now. After all, there were so many people gathered in front of Lin Feng's house, and he would definitely not open the door to let them in. However, faced with the current predicament, she didn't know what to do. Just then, a burst of hurried footsteps broke the silence of the room. Jiang Qingming pushed open Zhang Yading's bedroom door and walked in angrily. His face was full of anger and dissatisfaction as he spoke loudly. You two are still in the mood to chat here? Don't you see that Lin Feng has two extremely beautiful women at home? Aren't you trying to seduce Lin Feng? Jiang Qingming didn't have to join any gang or risk his life to snatch food, all because he had two women in his family. Ever since he knew that Chu Hanyu was using her body to exchange food with Lin Feng, he didn't even dare to touch Chu Hanyu. Afraid that Lin Feng would dislike him. However, the two women have become numb to Jiang Qingming's selfish and incompetent behavior. She just looked at him coldly and said nothing. Ever since Zhao Jiangguo mercilessly locked her up in that dark room, Zhao Ting has been possessed by a demon. She always held her cell phone tightly in her hand, staring at Lin Feng's photo all day long. However, when she saw two beauties appearing beside Lin Feng, her heart was instantly ignited by jealousy and anger. Screaming wildly, "No! Lin Feng is mine, and I am Lin Feng's woman." As she screamed, her body began to struggle violently, as if trying to break free from the shackles that bound her. Suddenly, with a crisp click sound, the rope tied to her body was broken by her crazy strength. Zhao Jiangguo and Li Huan heard unusual noises in the house while they were in the living room, and they immediately rushed in to check what was going on. Seeing Zhao Ting in such a crazy state, the two of them worked together to press her down on the bed and tried to calm her down. "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" Li Huan tried to hold down Zhao Ting, but Zhao Ting was so strong in her crazy state that she could hardly withstand her fierce struggle. "Let me go. I want to find Lin Feng." Suddenly, there was a loud bang. Zhao Ting actually punched Li Huan in the face. Li Huan covered her cheek in pain, while Zhao Ting took the opportunity to break free from the restraints and rushed out the door. However, when she ran to the door of Lin Feng's house panting, her way was blocked by a dark crowd. "All of you, get out of my way." Zhao Ting widened her eyes and screamed hysterically. Everyone's eyes turned to her. When they saw Zhao Ting with disheveled hair and distorted face, many people showed expressions of horror. "Oh my god, there's a ghost. The ghost is coming, everyone run." This scene scared away many people, however, there were still many brave people, or some people pretended to be brave and stayed behind, watching curiously, wanting to see what this ghost was all about. Just then, a familiar voice sounded in the crowd. "She is not a ghost, she is Zhao Ting, Lin Feng's ex-wife." The person who spoke was Sun Yu. She knew Zhao Ting better than anyone else and could tell her identity at a glance. Sun Yu walked up to Zhao Ting, looked at her coldly and said, "What are you doing here? In your current state, do you still dare to beg Lin Feng to forgive you?" Zhao Ting stared at Sun Yu fiercely, with a crazy light flashing in her eyes. "Why can't I come? Lin Feng was mine before, he is mine now, and he will be mine even more in the future." After saying that, she pushed Sun Yu away and rushed to the door of Lin Feng's house regardless of everything. Sun Yu wanted to stop her, but Zhao Ting was so strong that she couldn't stop her. Seeing this, everyone consciously made way. They all hoped that Zhao Ting's crazy behavior would make Lin Feng open the door. Bang, bang, bang. "Lin Feng, open the door. I am your little sweetie, I am here to find you, please let me in quickly." "Nima, sweetie." Lin Feng trembled all over and got goosebumps all over the floor. A strong feeling of nausea surged in his heart, and he almost wanted to connect the high-voltage electricity to electrocute this crazy woman to death. However, he finally held back. He knew that doing so would be too easy for Zhao Ting. However, facing the huge crowd outside the door, Lin Feng would never go out. He knew very well that once he stepped out of his home, he might fall into unpredictable danger. He would never do such a stupid thing. Hundreds of people gathered outside the door. Their eyes revealed fanaticism and madness. If he really fell into their hands, although these people seem to be begging him now, once they seize the opportunity, that kind of fanaticism and cruelty will erupt in an instant, and they will kill themselves without hesitation. Sun Yu outside the door seemed to have noticed Lin Feng's thoughts. She didn't want to miss this opportunity. He wanted to go up and pull Zhao Ting away to please Lin Feng. However, the crowd surrounded her and prevented her from getting closer. Everyone was waiting for this good show to continue. They wanted to see how the matter between Zhao Ting and Lin Feng would end. Lin Feng sat in front of the surveillance screen at home, with a clear view of the noisy scene outside. "I will create chaos later, and you can take the opportunity to drag Zhao Ting away. After that, I will give you 5 packs of instant noodles." When Sun Yu received the news, an expression of surprise appeared on his face. She turned around quickly and told Wei Wei beside her. The two exchanged glances and immediately got ready to take action at any time. At this moment, an unidentified object suddenly flew out from the direction of Lin Feng's house, crossed the sky, and landed above everyone. Zhao Ting had been keeping a close eye on the movement at the door of Lin Feng's house. She immediately realized that this was something Lin Feng deliberately threw out to lure everyone. "Look up." Everyone's eyes were drawn to it, and they saw the object in the air slowly falling down and was luckily caught in the hands of someone. "Wow, it's potato chips. That's great, Lin Feng showed mercy and gave me food. However, when the man excitedly opened the package, he found only 2 thin potato chips inside and the rest were cold glass beads. It turned out that Lin Feng put this in for counterweight. But the others were unaware of this and were still immersed in the joy of getting food. Swoosh! Another object flew out from the direction of Lin Feng's house, attracting everyone's attention again. Look, it's thrown out again. Hula! Everyone seemed to be attracted by a magnet and ran in the other direction. Chapter 91. Lin Feng kept throwing food in different directions, just like walking a dog, amusing everyone. Sun Yu took advantage of this opportunity and brought Wei Wei to quietly approach Zhou Ting. They took advantage of Zhou Ting's inattention, knocked her out with a swift move, and then quickly dragged her away. Zhang Jiashan's home was bustling with activity. Biozi, Wang Bo and more than a dozen other people gathered together. They were all wrapped in thick quilts, but they were still shivering. These people were the injured during the attack on Lin Feng's balcony last time. They attributed all the failure and suffering to Zhang Jiashan's command errors. Biozi touched his hot forehead, frowned, and felt uneasy. He recalled the water sprayed by Lin Feng last night, which was mixed with a large amount of chilly water in order to accelerate the infection of their wounds. He kicked Wang Bo who was leaning against the door of Zhang Jiashan's bedroom. Wang Bo opened his eyes groggily. Seeing Biozi signaling him to knock on the door, he dragged his tired body to stand up. Zhang Jiasheng didn't sleep all night last night. When he heard the knock on the door, he sighed helplessly, got up and walked towards the door. When he opened the door, he saw more than a dozen people lying in the living room, and he felt a headache. He knew these people would not leave easily, and even his bodyguards were injured in the conflict. He really had no way to drive them out, so he could only let them stay here. When Biozi saw Zhang Jiasheng coming out, he immediately went up to him with a hint of threat in his tone. Mr. Zhang, you are a businessman with a sharp mind. You have to think of a solution. If this continues, we will all die here. Biozi's words gave Zhang Jiasheng a headache. He knew that these people would not let him go easily. They would take him with them even if they died. At this moment, one of Zhang Jiashan's personal bodyguards suddenly came over in a hurry. His face was pale, as if he had seen something terrible. Mr. Zhang. Mr. Zhang, please check the group chat on your phone. Miss Li. She. When Zhang Jiasheng heard the 3 words Li Meiying, his heart suddenly tightened. He took a few steps towards the bodyguard, grabbed his collar tightly with both hands, his eyes full of anxiety and expectation. Tell me quickly. What happened to Meiying? In order to pursue her, he spent a lot of money just to make her smile. In the past few years, he has been even more careful in nurturing this relationship, fearing the slightest mishap. However, Li Meiying suddenly disappeared, as if she had evaporated from the face of the earth. This incident was like a huge rock pressing on Zhang Jiashan's heart, making him unable to sleep or eat. Now, he finally heard the news about Li Meiying, how could he not be extremely excited? The bodyguard looked at Zhang Jiashan's anxious eyes and his heart trembled. He knew he couldn't hide it, but he was afraid that telling the truth would make Zhang Jiasheng even angrier. You go and see for yourself. I really don't know what to say. Damn it. This piece of rubbish. Zhang Jiasheng angrily pushed the bodyguard away, turned around and walked quickly back to the room. Ah, Lin Feng, FKU, I'm going to FG kill you. Zhang Jiashan's roar echoed in the room like thunder before a storm. He widened his eyes and stared at the screen of his mobile phone. The video sent by Lin Feng was like a sharp knife, piercing deeply into his heart. In the video, Li Meiying's figure is clearly visible. She is actually in Lin Feng's home at this moment. This fact makes Zhang Jiasheng feel extremely angry and desperate. Biozi and others couldn't help but sneer in their hearts when they heard Zhang Jiashan's roar. Humph, kill Lin Feng? You can only yell a few words here. Last time you brought hundreds of people to block him, but you couldn't even get through the door. Now you want to kill him? What a joke. However, although Biozi thought so in his heart, he did not say it out loud. He knew very well that Zhang Jiasheng was on the verge of anger at the moment, and any carelessness might lead to a bigger conflict. Biozi didn't want to bring bad luck to Zhang Jiasheng at this time. After all, a desperate dog will do something terrible, let alone a human. Zhang Jiashan's anger burned in his heart. He clenched his fists, his nails digging deep into his flesh. The anger in his heart was like a volcanic eruption, and it could not be contained at all. With trembling fingers, he sent a voice message in the group chat, his voice full of threats and anger. Lin Feng. Listen to me, Li Meiying is my woman, she is mine. You better be smart and send her back to me intact. And prepare a few bottles of good wine and a few tables of delicious food to make amends to me. If you dare to be disrespectful to her or treat me badly, don't blame me for being rude to you. As soon as this voice message came out, the group fell into silence. Not only Lin Feng, but also other owners were stunned by Zhang Jiashan's arrogance. Who gave him the courage? Was it Fish Liang? At this time, he actually dared to threaten Lin Feng so blatantly, he was simply courting his life. Zhang Jiasheng himself knew that what he did might be a bit impulsive and even risky. However, he really couldn't stand the fact that Li Meiying was with Lin Feng. The jealousy and anger in his heart had made him lose his mind. He just wanted to get Li Meiying back as soon as possible and make Lin Feng pay the price he deserved. Just when the group was dead silent and the owners were secretly speculating about the dispute between Zhang Jiasheng and Lin Feng finally spoke up. You're welcome. Who do you think you are? You have hundreds of people and can't do anything to me. I want to see how you can be rude. Lin Feng's words pierced Zhang Jiashan's heart like a sharp knife, making him feel angry and humiliated. Seeing Lin Feng's ridicule, Zhang Jiashan's anger instantly burned up. This was undoubtedly a slap in his face in front of everyone. His face turned ashen, and his eyes flashed with ferocity, as if he wanted to eat Lin Feng alive. Lin Feng, you are going to die a miserable death. I don't believe this cold wave will last forever. Once the cold wave ends, you'll die. When Lin Feng heard this, the anger in his heart was ignited. Damn it, you dare to scold me. If I don't teach you a lesson, do you really think I'm easy to bully? Then, Lin Feng took out 10 packs of instant noodles and 10 cans of instant food and placed them neatly on the table. He gently picked up his phone, took pictures of the food, and then sent them to the owner's group. He tapped the screen of his mobile phone and added a message. Aren't you guys complaining about being hungry? Now, I'll give you a chance. Whoever can bring me Zhang Jiashan's head will own the food. There was a hint of teasing and indifference in Lin Feng's eyes. He was not the kind of person who would easily consider others. He did this to make these people fight each other. Chapter 92. He felt that only in this way could he add a bit of fun to this chaotic situation. Li Meiying slowly raised her head, her deep eyes looking directly at Lin Feng, an indescribable emotion welling up in her heart. Lin Feng must not be provoked easily. When Zhang Jiasheng saw the message posted by Lin Feng, a chill instantly ran down his spine. It was as if countless eyes were staring at him, leaving him nowhere to escape. Zhang Jiashen's heart was filled with regret and fear. He knew that he had made an irreparable mistake. In order to save the situation, he hurriedly sent a message in the group, trying to calm the storm. Brother Lin Feng, I was wrong. I was just joking with you. There's no need to take it so seriously. Please be merciful and take back the bounty. However, Lin Feng was not moved at all. He responded coldly, who is your brother? How dare you, a villain like you, call me your brother? I'm telling you, not only will I not take back the bounty, I'm also going to add 10 more packs of instant noodles to the bounty for Zhang Jiashen's head. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the group became tense. Don't fight with me, I'm determined to get Zhang Jiashen's head this time. I think this operation will not be easy. Zhang Jiasheng has bodyguards around him. It's too risky to act alone. Is there anyone willing to form a team? I have a team here. We only need 10 people. No more. If you want to join, please sign up quickly. We only need strong and courageous men. When Zhang Jiasheng saw the angry comments from the neighbors in the group, he couldn't help but feel panicked. He realized the seriousness of the problem and that these neighbors would never let him go. However, at this moment, Zhang Jiasheng had nowhere to hide. At this moment, there were more than a dozen burly men in the living room. Although they were all injured, none of them was a good person. Zhang Jiasheng alone was no match for them. What should I do? What should I do? He was extremely anxious, but helpless. Escape seems to be the only way out. But how can we escape from this encirclement? Zhang Jiasheng walked to the window and looked out. He is afraid of heights, so he deliberately chose the 3rd floor when buying a house. Even so, it is still more than 10 meters away from the ground. He looked downstairs and felt a little scared. Damn it, let's fight. Zhang Jiasheng gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He quickly pulled off the sheets and covers, he tore them into strips, tied one end firmly to the foot of the bed, and the other end to himself. In this way, he planned to slide down from the window and escape from this dangerous place. Outside the door, Beauties and others were holding various tools, ready to fight. They stood in a circle at the bedroom door, staring at the closed door. It was as if I had already seen Zhang Jiashen's head being exchanged for delicious food. Crack! The sound of glass breaking broke the dead silence. Beauties' heart suddenly tightened, as if it was being tightly grasped by something. Oh no, Zhang Jiasheng is trying to escape. Beauties yelled, and he reacted quickly and kicked open the bedroom door. The whole person rushed in like a tiger descending from the mountain. However, the scene before him stunned him. In the empty bedroom, where is Zhang Jiasheng? He looked around hurriedly, searching for any possible clues. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the sheets and quilt covers by the window. The fabrics that were torn into strips swayed gently in the wind. Beauties rushed to the window and saw a vast expanse of white snow outside. Zhang Jiashen's figure has been submerged by the thick snow and disappeared without a trace. Damn it! He got away. Beauties punched the wall in regret, with anger and disappointment intertwined in his heart. He should have rushed in earlier, but now it's too late. Beauties knew that he was injured and did not dare to chase after him. If anything goes wrong, I might even be implicated. He could only watch Zhang Jiasheng escape, but the anger in his heart grew stronger. He knew that this failure meant that he had missed the reward and that he had lost an important opportunity. Zhang Limei sat on the sofa at home, her eyes revealing endless worry. The baby in her arms was still crying for food, but her milk supply had long been insufficient, which made her even more anxious. The food she exchanged with Lin Feng last time had long been consumed. Now the family was out of food and water, and the crying of the child made her heart ache. She had sent messages to Lin Feng many times, hoping to exchange again. But every time, there was no response. This made her start to wonder if Lin Feng ignored her because he had 2 top beauties around him. Seeing the child crying because of hunger, Zhang Limei felt very distressed. She opened her clothes and comforted the child with her snow-white breasts, hoping to temporarily relieve his hunger. When Song Wei, who was sitting nearby, saw this scene, a hint of greed flashed in his eyes and his saliva almost flowed out. Last time, Zhang Limei promised Song Wei that she could sleep with him as long as he could get food from Lin Feng. But after coming back that time, Zhang Limei seemed like a different person and never mentioned this incident again. Although Song Wei was unwilling, he did not dare to force it. He could only silently protect Zhang Limei and the child, hoping that his sincerity could move her. In fact, Zhang Limei did not want to fulfill her promise. She is at the age of being as vigorous as a wolf and a tiger, and she also has needs in her heart. But what she was more worried about was that if she and Song Wei shared a room, Lin Feng would dislike her. Therefore, she could only suppress her inner impulse and try not to have any close contact with Song Wei, so as to avoid being unable to exchange food from Lin Feng. When she saw the bounty issued by Lin Feng, a spark of hope instantly ignited in her heart. She knew Song Wei's abilities very well. As a veteran, he was strong and healthy, and was not afraid of 3 or 5 big men. If he could find an opportunity to launch a sneak attack on Zhang Jiusheng, his chances of success would be very high. Zhang Limei handed the phone to Song Wei, her eyes gleaming with anticipation, and said, "Look, Lin Feng has issued a bounty. As long as you kill Zhang Jiusheng, you can exchange food with him. I know your skills. This shouldn't be a difficult task for you." Song Wei looked at the bounty on his phone with a frown on his face. He was indeed confident in his abilities, and he never took people like Zhang Jiusheng and his gang seriously. However, he felt uneasy inside because he had broken his oath during the last body snatching in the underground parking lot. He looked embarrassed and said to Zhang Limei, "Li Mei, I have already promised Lin Feng that I will not get involved in any more malicious incidents. This time, I." Chapter 92. He felt that only in this way could he add a bit of fun to this chaotic situation. Li Meiying slowly raised her head, her deep eyes looking directly at Lin Feng, an indescribable emotion welling up in her heart. Lin Feng must not be provoked easily. When Zhang Jiusheng saw the message posted by Lin Feng, a chill instantly ran down his spine. It was as if countless eyes were staring at him, leaving him nowhere to escape. Zhang Jiashen's heart was filled with regret and fear. He knew that he had made an irreparable mistake. In order to save the situation, he hurriedly sent a message in the group, trying to calm the storm. "Brother Lin Feng, I was wrong. I was just joking with you. There's no need to take it so seriously. Please be merciful and take back the bounty." However, Lin Feng was not moved at all. He responded coldly, "Who is your brother? How dare you, a villain like you, call me your brother? I'm telling you, not only will I not take back the bounty, I'm also going to add 10 more packs of instant noodles to the bounty for Zhang Jiashen's head." As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the group became tense. "Don't fight with me, I'm determined to get Zhang Jiashen's head this time. I think this operation will not be easy. Zhang Jiusheng has bodyguards around him. It's too risky to act alone. Is there anyone willing to form a team? I have a team here. We only need 10 people. No more. If you want to join, please sign up quickly. We only need strong and courageous men." When Zhang Jiusheng saw the angry comments from the neighbors in the group, he couldn't help but feel panicked. He realized the seriousness of the problem and that these neighbors would never let him go. However, at this moment, Zhang Jiusheng had nowhere to hide. At this moment, there were more than a dozen burly men in the living room. Although they were all injured, none of them was a good person. Zhang Jiusheng alone was no match for them. What should I do? What should I do? He was extremely anxious, but helpless. Escape seems to be the only way out. But how can we escape from this encirclement? Zhang Jiusheng walked to the window and looked out. He is afraid of heights, so he deliberately chose the 3rd floor when buying a house. Even so, it is still more than 10 meters away from the ground. He looked downstairs and felt a little scared. Damn it, let's fight. Zhang Jiusheng gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He quickly pulled off the sheets and covers, he tore them into strips, tied one end firmly to the foot of the bed, and the other end to himself. In this way, he planned to slide down from the window and escape from this dangerous place. Outside the door, Beauties and others were holding various tools, ready to fight. They stood in a circle at the bedroom door, staring at the closed door. It was as if I had already seen Zhang Jiashen's head being exchanged for delicious food. Crack! The sound of glass breaking broke the dead silence. Beauties' heart suddenly tightened, as if it was being tightly grasped by something. Oh no, Zhang Jiusheng is trying to escape. Beauties yelled, and he reacted quickly and kicked open the bedroom door. The whole person rushed in like a tiger descending from the mountain. However, the scene before him stunned him. In the empty bedroom, where is Zhang Jiusheng? He looked around hurriedly, searching for any possible clues. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the sheets and quilt covers by the window. The fabrics that were torn into strips swayed gently in the wind. Beauties rushed to the window and saw a vast expanse of white snow outside. Zhang Jiashen's figure has been submerged by the thick snow and disappeared without a trace. Damn it! He got away. Beauties punched the wall in regret, with anger and disappointment intertwined in his heart. He should have rushed in earlier, but now it's too late. Beauties knew that he was injured and did not dare to chase after him. If anything goes wrong, I might even be implicated. He could only watch Zhang Jiusheng escape, but the anger in his heart grew stronger. He knew that this failure meant that he had missed the reward and that he had lost an important opportunity. Zhang Limei sat on the sofa at home, her eyes revealing endless worry. The baby in her arms was still crying for food, but her milk supply had long been insufficient, which made her even more anxious. The food she exchanged with Lin Feng last time had long been consumed. Now the family was out of food and water, and the crying of the child made her heart ache. She had sent messages to Lin Feng many times, hoping to exchange again. But every time, there was no response. This made her start to wonder if Lin Feng ignored her because he had two top beauties around him. Seeing the child crying because of hunger, Zhang Limei felt very distressed. She opened her clothes and comforted the child with her snow-white breasts, hoping to temporarily relieve his hunger. When Song Wei, who was sitting nearby, saw this scene, a hint of greed flashed in his eyes and his saliva almost flowed out. Last time, Zhang Limei promised Song Wei that she could sleep with him as long as he could get food from Lin Feng. But after coming back that time, Zhang Limei seemed like a different person and never mentioned this incident again. Although Song Wei was unwilling, he did not dare to force it. He could only silently protect Zhang Limei and the child, hoping that his sincerity could move her. In fact, Zhang Limei did not want to fulfill her promise. She is at the age of being as vigorous as a wolf and a tiger, and she also has needs in her heart. But what she was more worried about was that if she and Song Wei shared a room, Lin Feng would dislike her. Therefore, she could only suppress her inner impulse and try not to have any close contact with Song Wei, so as to avoid being unable to exchange food from Lin Feng. When she saw the bounty issued by Lin Feng, a spark of hope instantly ignited in her heart. She knew Song Wei's abilities very well. As a veteran, he was strong and healthy, and was not afraid of 3 or 5 big men. If he could find an opportunity to launch a sneak attack on Zhang Jiusheng, his chances of success would be very high. Zhang Limei handed the phone to Song Wei, her eyes gleaming with anticipation, and said, "Look, Lin Feng has issued a bounty. As long as you kill Zhang Jiusheng, you can exchange food with him. I know your skills. This shouldn't be a difficult task for you." Song Wei looked at the bounty on his phone with a frown on his face. He was indeed confident in his abilities, and he never took people like Zhang Jiusheng and his gang seriously. However, he felt uneasy inside because he had broken his oath during the last body snatching in the underground parking lot. He looked embarrassed and said to Zhang Limei, "Li Mei, I have already promised Lin Feng that I will not get involved in any more malicious incidents. This time, Chapter 94. His eyes turned, and he suddenly had an idea. He quickly grabbed a few packaging bags. As if he had thought of a good idea, he walked downstairs quickly. At this point, most people had given up on looking for Zhang Jiusheng. They understood that in this apocalyptic world, staying outside for a long time would undoubtedly increase the risk to their lives. However, there are still a few people who have not given up looking for Zhang Jiusheng. They formed teams of 2 or 3 and moved around the buildings, looking for any clues about Zhang Jiusheng. Zhang Jiusheng carefully avoided everyone. He knew that his current situation was very dangerous. If you are not careful, you may be discovered. He used the darkness of the night, he moved skillfully between buildings and easily avoided everyone's search. Soon, he arrived at his destination, Zhao Ting's home. He stood at the door, took a deep breath and calmed his nervous emotions. Zhang Jiusheng stood at the door of Zhao Ting's house, took a deep breath, then knocked on the door firmly and lowered his voice. "Is Zhao Ting home? Open the door quickly. Lin Feng asked me to bring you food." He knocked for several minutes, and finally, there was a noise from inside the house. The first person to wake up was Zhao Ting. She had been sleeping, but woke up immediately when she heard Lin Feng's name. She threw off the thick quilt on her body and ran hurriedly to the door, her heart filled with excitement and joy. Lin Feng is finally willing to forgive me." However, just as she was about to reach out to open the door, she was stopped by Zhao Jiangguo. "What are you doing? Do you know how dangerous this is? You don't even know who is outside, how can you open the door casually?" Zhao Ting heard this and became anxious. She tried to shake off Zhao Jiangguo's hand like crazy. But she was too weak to break free. She was so anxious that tears were about to fall, and she shouted loudly. "Yes, Lin Feng brought me food. Why didn't you let me open the door?" Zhao Jiangguo looked at Zhao Ting who was so impulsive and wanted to open the door at all costs, and a surge of anger suddenly surged in his heart. A slap hit Zhao Ting's face. "Are you crazy? You trust people so easily? What if he's a liar? What if it's a bad guy? How could you be so stupid?" Zhao Ting staggered after being slapped by Zhao Jiangguo, and tears immediately welled up in her eyes. She covered her cheek, looked at Zhao Jiangguo aggrievedly, and spoke with a trembling voice. I just heard Lin Feng's name and thought he was willing to forgive me." Zhao Jiangguo looked at Zhao Ting's aggrieved expression, and the anger in his heart subsided a little. Ting, I know you have feelings for Lin Feng, but in this apocalyptic world, people's hearts are hard to predict. We can't trust people outside easily, and we can't open the door casually. Do you understand?" Zhao Ting nodded silently, she knew that Zhao Jiangguo was right. Zhang Jiusheng heard the noise inside the house from outside the door and felt nervous. He knew that his current situation was extremely dangerous and if he was discovered, the consequences would be disastrous. Therefore, time is running out and every second is crucial. Zhang Jiusheng took a deep breath and knocked on the door again. "It was really Lin Feng who asked me to come. If you don't believe me, just look at me. I have a lot of food in my hands, which is enough to prove my sincerity." Before this, Zhang Jiusheng had made sufficient preparations. He cleverly used several packages and stuffed them with snow. This makes the whole package look heavy, as if it is filled with precious food. He carefully placed the package in front of the cat's eye, then turned on the flashlight on his mobile phone to illuminate the outline of the package. Zhao Jiangguo looked through the cat's eye and vaguely saw the food in Zhang Jiashan's hand. But because Zhang Jiasheng deliberately hid, he did not see Zhang Jiashan's face clearly. This made Zhao Jiangguo even more confused. He had suffered losses at the hands of Lin Feng many times. Therefore, he always remained vigilant about Lin Feng's intentions. He asked cautiously. Why didn't Lin Feng come himself? Why did he ask you to come and send him off? Zhao Jiangguo's question gave Zhang Jiasheng an opportunity. He was secretly delighted in his heart and replied quickly. Didn't Lin Feng have a conflict with Zhang Jiasheng? You also know that Zhang Jiasheng is a sinister and cunning person. Lin Feng was afraid that it would be dangerous to come out, so he asked me to come and deliver the food. When he made this excuse, Zhang Jiasheng was secretly proud of himself. I feel like I'm a genius for coming up with such a perfect reason. After hearing this, Zhao Jiangguo frowned and felt uneasy. He always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't tell what it was. However, when Zhao Jiangguo saw the food in Zhang Jiashan's hand, his throat couldn't help swallowing. In this end times of food scarcity, their family has become emaciated. If there is no more food, I am afraid the only option is to end up in a tragic situation of killing each other. At this moment, Zhao Ting suddenly spoke, her voice carrying a hint of eagerness and anticipation. Dad, please open the door. Lin Feng must have forgiven me. We will have a good life from now on. Zhao Jiangguo pondered over and over in his heart, in this world, who else besides Lin Feng could provide such abundant supplies? He weighed the pros and cons in his mind and finally decided to trust once. So he pushed the door open carefully, and a faint light came out from the crack. However, at this moment, Zhang Jiasheng suddenly felt a chill coming from behind. All the hair on his body stood up instantly, as if they were about to pierce through his skin. Zhang Jiasheng did not look back, he knew very well that he could not hesitate at this moment. He quickly reached out and pulled Zhao Ting out of the door, then turned around and leaned against the wall, using Zhao Ting's body as a shield. Zhao Jiangguo and Zhao Ting were stunned by this sudden change. Before they could see Zhang Jiashan's face clearly, a figure rushed out from the darkness. It was Song Wei. Song Wei held a dagger in his hand, staring at Zhang Jiasheng with cold eyes, his voice revealing endless murderous intent. Zhang Jiasheng, your death is coming. Zhang Jiasheng hid behind Zhao Ting, not daring to show his head. He was well aware of Song Wei's abilities and had invited him to join his team many times, but Song Wei flatly refused. Now, facing Song Wei's dagger, he felt unprecedented fear. However, fear did not make Zhang Jiasheng lose his mind. He quickly drew a dagger from his waist, he leaned against Zhao Ting's neck and spoke in a calm and firm voice. Song Wei, look carefully, she is Lin Feng's ex-wife. If you want to kill me, I will kill her first. When the time comes, you will face Lin Feng's crazy revenge. Song Wei frowned when he heard this. He was not worried about Lin Feng's revenge, but he felt deeply grateful to Lin Feng. Chapter 95. If Zhang Jiasheng really killed Zhao Ting, wouldn't he be repaying kindness with enmity? However, at the moment when Song Wei was stunned, Zhang Jiasheng took the opportunity to hold Zhao Ting hostage and retreat back into the house. Song Wei came to his senses with the sound of the door closing with a bang. But it was too late, Zhang Jiasheng had already disappeared into the house with Zhao Ting. Seeing this situation, he wanted to tell Lin Feng what happened here. But when I took out my cell phone and looked at the time, it was already 3 in the morning. Song Wei had no choice but to give up the idea of a making a phone call, edited a message, described the whole incident clearly, and sent it. Last night, Lin Feng had a crazy night with Sun Ziyi and Li Meiying. It was not until noon the next day that Lin Feng stretched leisurely and walked out of the warm bedroom. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and sat at the dining table. Not long after, Li Meiying and Sun Ziyi brought breakfast up. While enjoying the delicious food, Lin Feng browsed the message Song Wei sent him. His brows were furrowed and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. As expected of a former tyrant, Zhang Jiasheng is extremely cunning. Li Meiying noticed Lin Feng's expression and asked curiously. Brother Feng, who are you talking about? Who can you give such a high valuation? Lin Feng took the abalone porridge handed to him by Li Meiying, took a sip, and responded. It was Zhang Jiasheng. So many neighbors tried to stop him, but he still managed to get away. As he spoke, Lin Feng's fingers flew on the keyboard and he quickly sent a message in the group, exposing Zhang Jiashan's whereabouts. However, everyone's expectations soon turned into disappointment. When they pried open the door of Zhao Ting's house and rushed in, they saw Zhao Ting and her family of 3 tied to chairs, while Zhang Jiasheng had disappeared without a trace. It turned out that Zhang Jiasheng had already expected Song Wei to reveal his whereabouts. Early in the morning, he once again used a few packaging bags as bait and successfully got the couple living opposite Zhao Ting's house to open the door. He acted decisively and killed the man, and kept the woman as a hostage. At this time, Zhang Jiasheng was hiding behind the peephole of the opposite door, quietly observing the situation at Zhao Ting's house opposite. A sly smile appeared on his face, as if everything was under his control. Lin Feng never cared about Zhang Jiashan's whereabouts. He knew that as long as the door was closed, he would be safe. His family was well equipped and no one could do anything to him. At this moment, everyone's attention is focused on the huge reward. Looking forward to killing Zhang Jiasheng in exchange for the tempting reward. At this moment when everyone is thinking about their own things, an unexpected figure appeared outside Lin Feng's house. Biozi. Biozi's situation was extremely difficult. There was an endless stream of people looking for Zhang Jiasheng. His wounds began to become severely infected due to lack of timely treatment. Every part of my body felt as if it were burned by fire. The wounds had begun to fester and ooze pus, and his strength was declining rapidly. I'm afraid even an ordinary woman would find it hard to resist. Under such circumstances, how could he dare to hope to obtain Zhang Jiashan's head in exchange for the reward? However, for Biozi, food is important, but the wounds on his body are fatal at this moment. He knew very well that if he continued like this, he would probably die soon. So he thought of Lin Feng. Lin Feng built a safe house and stored a large amount of food so that he could stay safe in this disaster. So, did he also store medicine to treat the wound? With this thought in mind, Biozi could only bite the bullet and come to Lin Feng's door. I hope to get a glimmer of hope from Lin Feng, a glimmer of medicine that can save his life. At this time, Lin Feng was closing his eyes, quietly enjoying the comfort of Li Meiying gently massaging his shoulders. Sun Ziyi came over quietly, squatted down, and massaged Lin Feng's thighs carefully. At the same time, she whispered softly in his ear. Lin Feng, there is a man kneeling outside the door and kowtowing. I looked carefully and that man seems to be Biozi. Li Meiying and Sun Ziyi both deeply admired Lin Feng's thundering methods. Not only did he easily repel the hundreds of people led by Zhang Jiasheng, moreover, now he has forced Biozi, the gangster boss who once dominated Haining, to bow down to him. Such strength is truly astonishing. Lin Feng picked up his phone and turned on the surveillance video. Sure enough, he saw Biozi kneeling at the door, looking extremely miserable. Don't worry about him for now, let him continue kneeling. After half an hour, Li Meiying and Sun Ziyi's hands were already sore from massaging, so Lin Feng signaled them to stop and rest. He stood up and walked slowly to the door. Through the observation hole, he saw that Biozi was still kowtowing. There were several big lumps on his forehead, and he looked very miserable. Biozi, how are you? The infection doesn't feel good, does it? If you don't get timely treatment, you probably won't live for many days. Let me tell you, this is what happens if you mess with me. When Biozi heard Lin Feng's words, he felt that his wound seemed to be even more painful. Although he knew that Lin Feng was deliberately trying to scare him, he couldn't suppress the fear in his heart. His body was shaking, he didn't dare to get up, he could only crawl to the door, gently knocking on it, begging. Lin Feng, I know I was wrong. You see, I came here alone today, without any men. I know you must have antibiotics here, and Dr. Sun is also at your house. As long as you are willing to help me, I will be your dog in the future and you can do whatever you want. Faced with the threat of death, Biozi's fear reached its peak. He knew very well that Lin Feng was his only lifeline now. Lin Feng looked at Biozi kneeling outside the door, his face expressionless, and he answered indifferently. Biozi, do you think I can let you go just like this? What you did has exceeded my bottom line. I, Lin Feng, am not a saint. I will not be soft-hearted just because you kneel down. Since you dare to provoke me, you should have expected this outcome. When Biozi heard Lin Feng's words, he felt a chill in his heart. He knew that he had really offended someone he shouldn't have offended this time. He continued to plead. Lin Feng, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I am willing to pay any price, just ask you to save my life. However, Lin Feng was not moved at all, he said lightly. Your life is worthless to me. Biozi, you should pay the price for what you did. I am being merciful by not killing you today. Go now, while you still have a few days to live, don't leave any regrets. Biozi's eyes were full of tears. After hearing Lin Feng's words, he fell into deeper despair. Chapter 96. However, anger could not change his fate. He struggled to get up and staggered back. After returning to his residence, he took out a knife and tried to remove the bacteria from the wound by burning it with fire. However, his actions were nothing but ignorant self-deception. The smell of burning grease filled the air, along with his painful howls. He bit the quilt, trying to endure the unspeakable pain. Unfortunately, all this is in vain. His wound did not get better, but became worse due to improper treatment. He seemed to have felt his life slipping away, but there was nothing he could do. Despair was like an icy tide, mercilessly devouring Biozi's soul. Don't have any regrets. Lin Feng's words became his only goal now. Biozi recalled his days of wandering around for half his life. The women around him changed like flowing water, and there was never an end to the series of beautiful women. He thought he could control everything, but he never imagined that at the end of his life, he would be so lonely. None of the women who once accompanied him are around now. In this abyss of despair, two women suddenly appeared in Biozi's mind, Sun Yu and Wei Wei. These two women he once supported turned out to be the only two women he knew in this community. My money is not so easy to take, so you will be buried with me. A crazy idea arose in Biozi's mind. He wanted to use their lives to make up for the regret and emptiness in his heart. He forced himself to cheer up and walk towards Sun Yu's home. Ding ding ding, there's a knock on the door. Sun Yu and Wei Wei shuddered at the same time, their hearts filled with fear and anxiety. These days, they have been living in fear, afraid that someone will come to their door. And now, this fear has finally become a reality. Wei Wei said with a trembling voice. Yu, what should we do? Someone is coming. Although Sun Yu was also afraid, she knew that fear would not solve the problem. She pretended to be calm, took a deep breath and said. Don't be afraid, let's go see who it is. However, before they reached the door, Biozi's voice came. Sun Yu, Wei Wei, open the door, I'm brother Biao. After hearing Biozi's voice, Sun Yu and Wei Wei felt relieved. Although Biozi is domineering, he is quite nice to them. However, they did not completely let down their guard. After all, in this time full of unknowns and dangers, anyone could become a potential threat. Sun Yu's eyes revealed a bit of vigilance and doubt, and she asked cautiously. Brother Biao, you suddenly came to see us, is there something going on? Biao seemed to have anticipated their reactions. He took a deep breath and spoke in a deep voice. I'm a little injured and need your help. Can you help me treat the wound? Sun Yu did not answer immediately, but walked to the door and looked out through the peephole. I saw Biao standing alone outside the door, his face pale and his body covered in blood, obviously he was seriously injured. She couldn't help but feel a wave of anxiety. On the one hand, she didn't want to get involved in any danger at this time. On the other hand, she couldn't help but think of her past friendship with Biao. Wei noticed Sun Yu's hesitation, walked forward curiously and looked outside the door. When she saw Bio's weak appearance, a bold idea came to her mind. She lowered her voice and spoke to Sun Yu. Yu, we haven't eaten for several days. If we continue like this, we will die. Sun Yu looked at Wei in confusion, not understanding why she would bring up this matter at this time. She frowned and asked. What do you mean? Wei took a deep breath, as if to cheer herself up for her next decision. I saw in the group that many people have started to kill each other and eat each other. Biao is seriously injured now, so it's a good opportunity for us to take action. After hearing what Wei said, Sun Yu was shocked. She immediately understood the meaning of Wei's words, kill him while he is ill. Wei wanted to kill Biao as food for their survival. This idea was so crazy that Sun Yu couldn't accept it for a while. She looked at Wei, her eyes filled with shock and confusion. Wei seemed to see Sun Yu's hesitation and reluctance. She gently held Sun Yu's hand and said. Yu, I know this is hard to accept, but in order to survive, we have no choice. Biao is no longer able to resist, and this is our only chance. Sun Yu was silent for a moment, her heart full of contradictions and struggles. She didn't want to be a murderer, but she didn't want to starve to death either. Finally, she took a deep breath and made a difficult decision. Okay, I'll do as you say. Then, Sun Yu walked quickly and calmly to the kitchen, carefully picked up a sharp kitchen knife. It was hidden in the shadows by the door, with only the gleaming blade showing. She gave Wei a look, signaling her to open the door. Wei received Sun Yu's gaze, and although she was still nervous, she knew they had no way out. She nodded gently, took a deep breath, and tried to calm her fear. She slowly opened the door with a fake smile on her face. With open arms, he seemed to be welcoming a long-lost relative. Oh, Brother Biao, I missed you so much, why did you come just now? If you weren't injured, you wouldn't even remember the two of us. Biao really didn't expect Wei to be so enthusiastic, and his originally tense nerves relaxed a little. Although he still had malice in his heart, he was bewitched by Wei's tenderness at the moment. He temporarily put aside the idea of a burying the two women with him. He walked into the house with Wei in his arms without any defense. At this moment, Sun Yu suddenly appeared, the kitchen knife she held high flashing coldly in the sunlight. She gritted her teeth, used all her strength, and slashed Bio's neck with the kitchen knife. Click with a crisp sound, the kitchen knife chopped into Bio's neck. Bio's eyes widened, and it seemed that he hadn't fully reacted yet before his body had already lost control. Squeak blood gushed out like a fountain, instantly dyeing the walls and the ground red. Bio reached out to cover the wound on his neck in horror, but the blood was gushing out like a wild horse that could not be stopped. Sun Yu and Wei watched Bio's life slip away before their eyes, and they felt both fear and relief in their hearts. Finally, Bio's body fell weakly to the ground, his eyes were still wide open, as if he died with his eyes open. Chapter 97. At the moment he fell to the ground, he finally saw clearly that the person standing behind him was Sun Yu. His eyes were filled with disbelief and anger. You, why? However, Sun Yu just looked at him coldly without answering. Bio's life slowly faded away in front of them, until the last breath disappeared. Bio graduated. He never imagined until his death that the two weak women he had intended to bury with him would be so cruel and murderous. This is the cruelty of the end of the world. In this world full of danger and uncertainty, everyone needs to be vigilant at all times and be wary of everyone around them. Because in this era, survival has become the biggest challenge. Bio was not the only one whose wound was infected. The dozen or so people who had attacked Lin Feng's balcony were also not spared. This also includes Wang Bo. However, they were not like Bio, with an almost crazy ruthlessness, he burned the knife red to treat the wound. Because of this, their symptoms did not deteriorate to the alarming degree that Bio's did. However, with the shortage of food and the increasingly serious infection of the wound, Wang Bo's body gradually became weak. His face was pale, his eyes were dull, and he looked like he would collapse at any moment. He used up his last bit of strength and pleaded with Aunt Zhao in a weak voice. Aunt Zhao, please give me some water to drink. I really can't hold on any longer. Aunt Zhao stayed by Wang Bo's side all the time, feeling mixed emotions as she watched him become increasingly thinner and weaker. She had wanted to end Wang Bo's life many times and use him as food to replenish her energy. But every time she saw Wang Bo dying, she couldn't bear it. She could only wait silently for Wang Bo to die, so that perhaps she could find a little comfort in her heart. Aunt Zhao responded coldly. Where is the water at home? Even if there was any, it would have already frozen into ice. After hearing what Aunt Zhao said, Wang Bo's eyes flashed with disappointment. But he still didn't want to give up. He looked at Aunt Zhao with all his strength, his eyes full of desire. Aunt Zhao, I really can't hold on any longer. Can you go downstairs and dig some snow? I don't want to die without even a sip of water. Aunt Zhao looked at Wang Bo's eager eyes and a ripple appeared in her heart. She knew that Wang Bo didn't have much time left, but she was still worried about leaving her grandson alone at home with Wang Bo. She hesitated for a moment, and finally decided to go downstairs to dig the snow. Before walking towards the bedroom, she looked back at Wang Bo to make sure that he was indeed too weak to get up. Then she walked into the bedroom, glanced at her sleeping grandson, and prayed silently in her heart that he would be safe. She locked the door to make sure Wang Bo could not enter the bedroom, then she went downstairs to dig snow with peace of mind. However, at the moment when Aunt Zhao closed the security door, Wang Bo's eyes suddenly widened, as if he had become a different person. His original weak state was instantly swept away, and he swiftly rolled over to the ground. He hurriedly moved in front of the cat's eye and carefully confirmed that Aunt Zhao had indeed gone downstairs. A strong desire to survive surged in his heart, and he knew this was his only chance. He looked around quickly, and the moment his eyes fell on the table, a hint of determination flashed in his eyes. He suddenly grabbed the table and smashed it towards the bedroom door where Xiao Kong was with all his strength. Bang, bang, bang. The huge crash echoed in the silent room, as if it was going to tear the entire space apart. The bedroom door was just an ordinary wooden door and could not withstand Wang Bo's crazy smashing. In less than 2 minutes, the door collapsed under Wang Bo's fierce attack. Xiao Kong was still asleep when he was awakened by the sudden sound of someone knocking on the door. He stared at the shattered bedroom door with wide eyes in horror. When he saw clearly that the person who came in was Wang Bo, the fear in his heart reached its peak. He shouted loudly, "Uncle Wang, why are you BG on the door?" However, Wang Bo had completely fallen into a state of madness and he could not hear Xiao Kong's cries at all. There was a cold light flashing in his eyes, as if he wanted to destroy all living things in front of him. Without hesitation, he raised the table in his hand again and smashed it hard on Xiao Kong's head. Blood gushed out instantly, staining the entire bedroom red. At this point, Xiao Kong, who was spoiled by Aunt Zhao and turned into a little devil, also left the world forever. His life came to an end in Wang Bo's madness and cruelty. Without stopping, Wang Bo carried Xiao Kong's body and quickly returned to his home. Aunt Zhao carefully carried a basin of clean snow and returned home with heavy steps. When she looked up and saw that the security door that should have been closed was now wide open, my heart couldn't help but skip a beat, as if some ominous premonition came to my mind. Bang! The basin of clear snow in her hand dropped due to her sudden panic, and the crisp sound of breaking echoed in the silent corridor. Xiao Kong! Aunt Zhao's heart sank suddenly. She quickly dropped the basin in her hand and ran towards the bedroom. Her steps became faster and faster, and the panic in her heart became more and more intense. The moment she pushed open the bedroom door, what came into her eyes was a shocking scene. The room was full of blood. Completion. A feeling of despair surged in Aunt Zhao's heart. She knew without thinking that Wang Bo must have deliberately shown weakness just now. After sending her away, he attacked Xiao Kong. Her grandson, her only relative, died tragically at the hands of Wang Bo. Xiao Kong, my grandson. Aunt Zhao was heartbroken. She sat down on the ground, covering her face with her hands, tears streaming down through her fingers. Her heart was filled with regret and self-blame. She shouldn't have believed Wang Bo's lies, but now it was too late. Wang Bo, I'm going to kill you. The anger in Aunt Zhao's heart was instantly ignited. She stood up, with crazy hatred flashing in her eyes. She walked into the kitchen, picked up a sharp kitchen knife and held it tightly in her hand. She walked out of the house resolutely and went straight to Wang Bo's residence. She had only one thought in her mind, and that was to avenge Wang Cong. Wang Bo, get the hell out of here. I'm going to kill you. Aunt Zhao roared angrily, her voice filled with endless hatred. She held the sharp kitchen knife tightly in her hand and chopped at the door of Wang Bo's house frantically. The crackling sound of the collision echoed in the corridor, and every knife cut was like the anger burning in her heart. Although the door of Wang Bo's house was not specially modified like Lin Feng's, but the security door was still not strong enough for an old lady in her 50s like Aunt Zhao to break open easily. Chapter 98. The kitchen knife left deep marks on the door, but the door still stood stubbornly. Aunt Zhao continued to chop desperately, her eyes full of bloodshot. The wrinkles on his face became deeper because of anger. Her hands were shaking from the exertion. But she had no intention of stopping. Wang Bo, you beast, you killed my grandson, I will make you pay with your life. However, no matter how hard she tried, the door was never opened. Aunt Zhao felt a sense of powerlessness coming over her. She sat on the ground leaning against the door, with the kitchen knife in her hand hanging limply to the side. Inside the house, Wang Bo dismantled all the furniture that could be dismantled. Lighting the fire and grilling the meat, he had figured it out and wanted to enjoy every moment. There is no need to think about tomorrow. Ha ha ha, Aunt Zhao, your grandson's meat is really tender. Wang Bo's laughter echoed in the house, with a bit of madness and distortion. He seemed to have given up all morals and bottom lines, and only wanted to enjoy these last moments. The sizzling sound continued, and the flames jumped, illuminating Wang Bo's hideous face. The barbecue in his hand was already roasted to a golden brown, with fat dripping onto the fire and emitting wisps of green smoke. He took a big bite of meat, a satisfied expression on his face. That expression showed both greed for food and indifference to the impending fate. Aunt Zhao, you didn't expect that your grandson would end up being my meal. Wang Bo muttered to himself, with a cruel smile on his face. Aunt Zhao leaned weakly against the wall, her hands hanging limply, her heart filled with despair. The smell of burning rose through the crack in the door, stimulating her sense of smell. It made her realize more clearly that her beloved grandson Xiao Kong had fallen into Wang Bo's clutches. She wanted to shout loudly, wanted to break through the door and tear Wang Bo into pieces. However, she had no strength left in her body, not even the strength to stand. Bang, bang. Aunt Zhao knocked on the door twice feebly, her voice faint and powerless. Wang Bo, you will not die well, you will definitely be punished. Hearing Aunt Zhao's voice, Wang Bo laughed even more crazily in the house. He walked to the door and shouted sarcastically. Ha ha ha, retribution? You are talking about yourself. You are usually arrogant and domineering in the community, bullying the weak, not taking anyone seriously, and often stealing people's things. Now my grandson has been killed. This is your retribution. Wang Bo's words were like a sharp knife, piercing deeply into Aunt Zhao's heart. She thought back on what she had done over the years and realized that she had indeed done a lot of wrong things. She did many bad things in the community under the name of the neighborhood committee and even stole the underwear of a young man. Aunt Zhao wilted, she knew that she was powerless to save the situation. She could only endure the pain and regret silently, praying that Xiao Kong could rest in peace in heaven. Wang Bo's mocking voice kept echoing in Aunt Zhao's ears. She felt heartbroken and tears silently rolled down her cheeks. She deeply regretted what she had done in the past, those acts of hurting others and stealing, which have now become an eternal pain in her heart. She believed that she had harmed her grandson. If she had been more restrained at the beginning, perhaps Xiao Kong would not have suffered such a misfortune. But what's the use of regret? Time cannot be reversed, and she cannot change the facts of the past. Aunt Zhao could only endure the pain and regret silently, praying that Xiao Kong could rest in peace in heaven. Pa! Suddenly, a piece of meat flew out from the crack in the door and landed at Aunt Zhao's feet. Aunt Zhao, have a taste of the evil you have sown. Aunt Zhao looked down and saw that there were still traces of burning on the piece of meat. The burnt smell stimulated her sense of smell again. Her heart twitched, she knew very well that this was Xiaokong's flesh, and Wang Bo was deliberately humiliating her. Aunt Zhao swallowed unconsciously in her throat and her stomach began to growl. She hadn't eaten for several days, and at this moment, this piece of meat was undoubtedly a huge temptation to her. Her body was craving for food, craving the warmth and satiety that this piece of meat would bring. With trembling hands, she slowly picked up the piece of meat. Her heart was full of contradictions and struggles. On the one hand, she knew that this was an insult and provocation from Wang Bo. On the other hand, her body was craving the warmth and satiety that this piece of meat would bring. Finally, hunger overcame reason, and Aunt Zhao put the piece of meat into her mouth. She chewed, feeling the tenderness and aroma of the meat spreading in her mouth. It smells so good. Master Wang, please, give me another piece. Aunt Zhao's words stunned Wang Bo. He didn't expect that Aunt Zhao, who regarded her grandson as a treasure, would say such words. Aunt Zhao, you really opened my eyes. For such a little food, you even lost your family affection. Aunt Zhao lowered her head and did not answer. Her heart was filled with humiliation and pain, but she knew that the most important thing now was to survive. Wang Bo opened the door, took out a bigger piece of meat and threw it in front of Aunt Zhao. He admired the way Aunt Zhao wolfed down the food, as if he was watching a clown show. Aunt Zhao ate the meat while enduring Wang Bo's humiliation and ridicule. Her heart was filled with anger and hatred, but she knew that now was not the time. She needs to keep calm and wait for her chance. Aunt Zhao raised her head and looked at Wang Bo with cold eyes. Wang Bo caught a hint of cold murderous intent in Aunt Zhao's eyes. However, this did not cause him much alarm. In his opinion, how much trouble could an old woman cause? He secretly thought that he would let the old woman live a few more days. It won't be too late to find an excuse to kill her the next time food is scarce. Bang! The door was slammed shut. Wang Bo turned around and went back home, still feeling a little uneasy. He knew that Aunt Zhao had already made up her mind to kill him. If he stayed alone with her in a room again, there was no guarantee that she wouldn't secretly harm him while he was sleeping. Aunt Zhao held the remaining piece of flesh in her hand tightly against her chest and hid it deep in her clothing. There was a determined light in her eyes and a strong desire for revenge in her heart. She secretly vowed that no matter how many hardships she encountered, no matter how hopeless life was, she would persevere. She imagined the moment when Wang Bo fell at her feet, imagined the relief and satisfaction. She told herself that only by killing Wang Bo with her own hands could she die without regrets and let her soul rest in peace. Chapter 99. That afternoon, Lin Feng sat on the sofa, with Chu Hanyu's name flashing on the screen of his mobile phone. He gently pressed the send button, and a message quietly flew to Chu Hanyu's mobile phone. Hanyu, you and Yading come over here together. According to his estimation, the food given to them last time had been almost eaten up, and they could not be allowed to starve to death for the time being. Although Li Meiying and Sun Ziyi are both stunningly beautiful, Lin Feng knows that people's aesthetic sense will become fatigued. Facing the same face every day, even the most beautiful woman will gradually lose her appeal. Therefore, he needs to change his taste occasionally and add some freshness to his life. The existence of Chu Hanyu and Zhang Yading was just such a diversion for him. Before finding the next target, he had to keep them alive and ready to be used at any time. He did not hide this matter from Li Meiying and Sun Ziyi. When they heard the knock on the door, they both returned to their room tacitly. They had already prepared themselves mentally, knowing that Lin Feng's world couldn't just consist of the two of them. In this apocalyptic world full of crises, they learned to accept and adapt. When Chu Hanyu and Zhang Yading walked into the room, Zhang Yading's eyes were slightly red. She looked at Lin Feng with a trembling voice. I thought you didn't want me anymore. Although Chu Hanyu didn't say anything, her thoughts were the same as Zhang Yading's. She clutched the corner of her clothes tightly, her fingers trembling slightly due to nervousness. She lowered her head, not daring to look at Lin Feng, for fear that her eyes would reveal her inner fear and anxiety. Lin Feng looked at them, and a complicated emotion surged in his heart. He understood that although these women were under his control, they also had their own emotions and thoughts. He sighed softly and said, "Don't worry, as long as you listen to me, I won't treat you unfairly." After hearing Lin Feng's words, Chu Hanyu and Zhang Yading felt a little relieved as if the anxiety in their hearts was blown away by a warm breeze. They looked at each other and saw some comfort in each other's eyes. Lin Feng motioned for them to sit down, then slowly spoke, "I know you've been feeling a little uneasy lately, worrying that I might suddenly change my mind. Don't worry, as long as you do what I say, I won't treat you unfairly." Zhang Yading bit her lip and mustered up the courage to ask. "Besides sleeping with you, we can't do anything else. We really don't know what else we can do for you." Lin Feng smiled slightly and said, "Haha, it's not as complicated as you think. In fact, I just want you to pay more attention to the movements around you and tell me everything you hear and see." The situation outside was indeed becoming more and more complicated, and the hungry neighbors' nerves were on the verge of breaking. They will do anything for food, even at the cost of hurting others. Lin Feng knew this very well, so he didn't want to go out and take risks easily to avoid getting into unnecessary trouble. Now there are very few people talking in the owner group. Lin Feng knows that those people are deliberately avoiding him. Therefore, he had no way of knowing any news that was unfavorable to him. That's why he wanted to get more information through Chu Hanyu and Zhang Yading. Chu Hanyu thought for a moment and said, "Nothing special happened. Zhang Jiusheng just posted some messages in another group, saying that even if you kill him, you will not honor the reward." Zhang Yading continued. "Another incident happened this morning. Sun Yu hung Biozi's head at the door of her house. The scene was really scary. I guess she was warning others not to provoke her easily." When Lin Feng heard this, he frowned slightly. Sun Yu actually killed Biozi, which was indeed something he did not expect. This girl is really resourceful. She can even deal with the once powerful gangster boss. But Lin Feng didn't care. If Sun Yu really dared to attack him, then he will ruthlessly make Sun Yu disappear from the world before the sun rises tomorrow. However, Lin Feng knew in his heart that Zhang Jiashan's existence was a big trouble. This person who has been hiding in the dark is like a poisonous snake lurking in the grass, ready to launch a fatal attack at any time. Lin Feng was certain that Zhang Jiusheng had been looking for opportunities to plot against him. Lin Feng could only shake his head helplessly at his neighbor's incompetence. It was extremely disappointing that with the strength of hundreds of people, they couldn't even find one person. Afterwards, a sumptuous dinner was prepared for the two ladies, allowing them to fully enjoy the charm of delicious food. After eating and drinking, a passionate battle is inevitable. The two ladies were very tactful. They never mentioned anything about Li Meiying and Sun Ziyi being at Lin Feng's house from beginning to end. When they left, Lin Feng gave each of them a box of instant noodles as a reward for their physical effort. He made an agreement with them to come every 10 days, and if they had any news or discoveries, they would tell him. Ding ding ding, there was a sudden knock on the door, interrupting Lin Feng's thoughts. He originally thought that Chu Hanyu or Zhang Yading had dropped something. But when he turned on the surveillance camera, he saw an unexpected figure, a woman in police uniform. Lin Feng frowned slightly, feeling doubtful. Who is this woman in police uniform? Why is she here? Why haven't I seen her in the neighborhood? Lin Feng immediately adjusted his mentality, took a deep breath, and tried his best to make his voice sound calm. He walked slowly to the door, but instead of opening it directly, he asked softly through the door. "Comrade policewoman? You came to see me so late, is there something urgent?" The woman outside the door responded in a clear and powerful voice. "Hello, Mr. Lin, I'm Li Jingxuan. I'm sorry to bother you so late at night. But I have an important matter to discuss with you. May I go in and discuss it in detail?" Lin Feng listened to her voice and couldn't help feeling a little confused. He didn't know this police officer Li Jingxuan. Lin Feng frowned slightly, wondering whether he should let her in. He looked through the peephole on the door and vaguely saw the figure of a woman outside. She has a delicate face, a heroic look, and a neat police uniform. She is indeed heroic and fully deserves the title of policewoman. However, Lin Feng became more alert. Lin Feng knew that as a police officer, Li Jingxuan must be very skilled. If I don't know her and let her in easily, there might be some danger. He didn't want to take the risk, especially at this sensitive moment. So, Lin Feng said inside the door. "Officer Li, I'm so sorry, it's so late and I'm ready to rest. Please go back." Chapter 100. Li Jingxuan didn't expect Lin Feng to reject her request so decisively. She stood outside the door, a little stunned, and then she did something that surprised Lin Feng. She pulled out a black pistol from the holster at her waist and placed it carefully on the ground. Then he quickly retreated more than 10 meters, keeping a safe distance. She took a deep breath and spoke loudly. "Mr. Lin, I hope this action of mine can show my sincerity. You can open the door and take the gun away. When our conversation is over, if you feel it is unnecessary to accept my proposal, you can return the gun to me. I promise that I will never have any intention of hurting you." When Lin Feng heard the words outside the door, he was shocked. Gun. For him, this is indeed very important. Although the gun in his hand was quite powerful, there were only a few bullets left, only 10, so he had to use it with caution. However, facing Li Jingxuan's proposal, Lin Feng did not immediately relax his vigilance. Doubts once again arose in his mind. China has always had strict control over guns. Even police officers cannot carry guns around with them. He doubted whether the identity of Officer Li Jingxuan was real, or whether there was any special mission that required her to carry a gun. Lin Feng pondered for a moment and decided to test Li Jingxuan first. He said through the door. Officer Li, I see your sincerity. However, China has strict gun control. Why do you carry a gun with you? Can you explain? Li Jingxuan's heart tightened when she heard Lin Feng's question. She understood that her actions would easily arouse Lin Feng's suspicion. She took a deep breath and tried to make her voice sound calm and sincere. Mr. Lin, I am indeed a police officer, but I am also a member of a special unit. I am carrying a gun this time because I have received an urgent mission and need to interview you. I can show you my ID and mission documents to prove my identity and purpose. Lin Feng listened to Li Jingxuan's explanation and remained vigilant. He did not open the door immediately, but said. Officer Li, can I see your ID and mission documents first, and then I'll consider whether to open the door. Li Jingxuan nodded silently and quickly and resolutely took out her ID and mission documents from her bag. She put them together with the pistol on the ground, and then retreated more than 10 meters to ensure that Lin Feng had enough safe space. Lin Feng took a deep breath and mustered up the courage to open the door. He quickly picked up the things on the ground and closed the door immediately. He carefully read Li Jingxuan's credentials and mission documents. The document clearly states that Li Jingxuan belongs to a special department. This time I came to Haining to carry out an important arrest mission. The target was a fugitive. However, Lin Feng still remained cautious about the gun that Li Jingxuan was carrying. He knew that guns were important weapons of the country and could not be disposed of at will. Although the end of the world has come and the world has become chaotic, Lin Feng still maintains his loyalty to the country. He raised his head and said. Officer Li, I can let you in, but for safety reasons, I need you to take off all your clothes. This is not an insult to you, but a necessary caution in a disaster. I hope you can understand. If you don't agree, I will return your things to you immediately. When Li Jingxuan heard Lin Feng's words, her brows furrowed, and an indescribable shame and anger surged in her heart. As a virgin, how could she possibly take off all her clothes in front of a man? This is simply an insult to her character. However, she also knew that she had no other choice now. The cold wave was raging and she had no food supplies, so she starved to death. She took a deep breath and spoke with a slightly trembling voice. Okay, I agree to your request. Open the door. With a click, the door lock was opened. Li Jingxuan pushed the door open and slowly walked into the house. However, what greeted her was a black muzzle of a gun, pointing directly at her heart. Lin Feng held the gun tightly, his eyes firm and cold, and said. Officer Li, this is an extraordinary period. I apologize for any offense. Please forgive me. Li Jingxuan took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She knew that the tense atmosphere at the moment would not allow her to make any mistakes. She nodded slightly and said softly. I understand. Then she slowly took off her coat and hung it on the hanger, then her shirt and pants, one piece at a time, until only her underwear was left. The figure is curvy, firm breasts, slender legs, the wheat-colored skin is full of power and has a unique flavor. However, in this life and death moment, all these external beauties seem insignificant. Lin Feng glanced at Li Jingxuan and confirmed that she was not carrying any weapons before lowering the gun slightly. He pointed to the sofa and said. Please take a seat. Li Jingxuan sat down on the sofa without any hesitation. She knew that being calm and composed at this moment was the best protection for herself. Lin Feng sat opposite Li Jingxuan, his eyes wandering over her. But it was not out of frivolity, but out of an instinctive vigilance. He asked. Officer Li, what brings you here this time? Lin Feng's eyes have been hovering over Li Jingxuan. Although he is also experienced, but this was the first time he had seen a beauty as charming as Li Jingxuan. Li Jingxuan felt a little embarrassed by Lin Feng's fiery gaze, her face flushed, she adjusted her sitting position and spoke seriously. I'm here to track down a fugitive who lives in this neighborhood. However, during the pursuit, I was caught in a cold wave. Fortunately, I have shot and killed the fugitive. You can check my gun. There's a bullet missing. Lin Feng nodded slightly, but did not check Li Jingxuan's gun. He motioned for her to continue. Li Jingxuan continued. Since the cold snap started, I've noticed that there has been no rescue effort organized, which makes me feel very uneasy. As a member of a special unit, I know that the severity of this disaster is far beyond our imagination. I even suspect that this disaster may lead to the extinction of mankind. After hearing this, Lin Feng frowned. Although he was not from a special department, he also learned about the situation in the outside world from various channels. He knew very well that what Li Jingxuan said was not alarmist. Seeing that Lin Feng did not refute, Li Jingxuan continued. I heard about you from the neighbors. It seems that you foresaw the coming of this disaster, so you made preparations in advance. My purpose in coming to you is simple. I just hope to exchange some food from you. I want to survive. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.